My name is Sarah Molina. I'm here from the mayor's office. I have a couple of announcements, so bear with me. I'll try to be real quick. I'm going to start with the budgeting because I haven't seen you guys since the budget dropped. The mayor dropped her budget about 2 weeks ago. She presented it to her council, to the DC Council for FY19. So the budget covers from our youngest resident to our seniors. This budget makes broad investment that takes into consideration the diverse needs of Washingtonians across all 8 wards. For example, 12.5 million investments in making early child care more affordable, 49 million increase in funding for public schools, and also multiple fundings for seniors. I have with me a kind of like a cheat sheet of all the investment that's it's gonna affect Ward 1 only. So if you would like a copy, I'm gonna be in the back, and I can go ahead and give you one. But it includes, for example, Parks and Recreation. I know, what is it called? Parkview Rec Center is gonna be. They're gonna have some modifications, and then also Tubman, it's under the budget as well. And then just other things that fall under Ward 1. This is it's 2-page, so I can't go through it. But again, if you want a copy, I'll be in the back. In the back, I have the mayor's newsletter, and you can take a look at it. It has great stuff, such as how to use 311, the private security camera incentive program, and Safe at Home. Want to remind everyone that DC Emancipation Day is this Saturday, April 14th, so please come out. We'll be out there. Then on April 21st is Earth Day, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cleanups, but just to make sure that everyone is participating in your neighborhood, we started a pledge, and if you want to sign the pledge, that basically just says that you're going to contribute to your neighborhood and pick go out in the front of your neighborhood or around your neighborhood and pick up some trash to help during Earth Day. You can go ahead and sign the pledge. I also have the pledges in the back if you'd like a copy. Hold on. So, and another thing that I just want to announce, a couple of things that we as smokers that we've been doing. I brought out some of the agencies to Parkview. I got DOH, DPW, DDOTs, and DCRA to walk the neighborhood with me, walk the alleys, to note some of the different issues that we found throughout that neighborhood. I'm gonna be scheduling other walkthroughs with agencies, and I'm gonna continue to update you guys. But this time we did it at Parkview. Also, I emailed the commissioners, but just as an announcement for today, I just want to let you know that one of the biggest wins that I've had so far, and I don't know if you guys know me, but not new, but I've been working on trying to get the Columbia Heights between 14th and 16th, that road repaved, because I know I've heard a lot of complaints. I've also lived around the neighborhood, so I also have to deal with it. And just want to let you guys know that that's one of the roads that is in the list to be repaved. So it's the one in Columbia Road between 14th and 16th. And I sent the email to the commissioners with all the list of where you can find it.
Why didn't it go as far as 13? Because 13.
13's already done.
13 was pretty torn up because of the water pipe with DC Water.
Well, 13 was
done.
So 13 was on the list too, and so the list is on the website, and I sent out the email to you guys, and it is on the list too. But the one that's soon to come up, and that I don't know the exact dates, but I know that it is coming up, is that major one, which is between Columbia Road between 14th and 16th. And I think that's it. I might have forgot something, but
You'll be here.
I'll be here all day, all night. So you had a question? Yeah. I'll pass it up. I'll be here all night. So trust me, I will forward it to you by email, and I will also be here to give it to you in person. You have a question? Yeah. For the Parkview Rec Center, they're gonna do modifications, such as like, I think the commissioner.
But it's in like 4 years.
Right, it's so it's in the budget to start, but it's like a 4-year kind of project to do improvements in the rec center. And then I think Commissioner Kent is the ANC in it, and I think you guys are gonna be talking about like what kind of improvements you wanna see in the rec center, so that we take it back.
I assure you this will be done with the community and not to the community.
Yeah.
That's the way I like to put it.
Right. So they're gonna be talking, or the community's gonna be talking about what kind of improvements you wanna see, and then we take that feedback and let DPR know so that, they have kind of like okay, this is what the community wants to see. But improvements for that, it's just that the mayor put money aside to make sure that the improvement starts at the rest. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so I'll be here all night. See you in the back.
Hi everybody, my name is Scott Williamson. I just wanted to take an opportunity to let everybody know about the Georgia Avenue Pedestrian Safety Group. We're focused primarily on pedestrian access and ease of crossing. Basically the entire stretch south of Petworth all the way through to the intersections of Kenyon and Columbia. There's some areas there where it's really tough, particularly around Lamont and Morton. We've got a lot of business and public interest in really making that area sort of safer, more community-oriented, more street-like, more walkable. We really would love to have any more interaction with anybody who's interested in that particular issue and wants to take part. We'd love to have your engagement as a group. We're working through Georgia Avenue Thrive as well. So if you're familiar with them and their work, that's a great way to reach out to us as well. You can also just find me. I'd be thrilled to take your information and catch you up on what we've been doing. We've been thrilled to have good interaction with the ANC, with the council member's office, and with VDOT right now, and there are a lot of good ideas flowing around. We just want to get them coordinated around what everybody kind of thinks is the best, rather than just sort of find out that something happened. So there is looking like action, but we just want to sort of idealize that and make sure it's the best possible. So, anyhow, I'm Scott. Feel free to find me whenever you want. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Good evening. I'm Anthony Green. I'm a local business owner. I own Elite Pest Control Company here in D.C. I service Maryland, D.C., and Virginia area. I live in the Parkview community. I've been living there ever since I was 12 years old. I went to Parkview before it became Bruce Monroe. I won the spelling bee at Parkview. I was the only student to make it to the citywide and almost win, came in second. I had the Anthony Green Day at Parkview. I was the only student ever to have that. So I'm pretty embedded in this community, and I don't see too many people that I know from that community. Like in the past 20 years, I don't see one person here. And I got the newsletter to our door, which is for Parkview, but it's not in the neighborhood, so I had to come all the way over here for this meeting. My issue that I want to address today comes from the community, people who grew up in the community. One issue is the liquor stores. It's a liquor store on every corner.
That ain't new. Tell us something.
Exactly, so there's time for change. It's been there since I was a little boy, the same ones, exactly. And they're causing great harm to our community. It's easy access to liquor, but not easy access to our history. That the library is insufficient. I went there looking for books so I could figure out my history. And you know what? You can't find them. They want to order books for you, which never come. That's one issue. Next issue is for Parkview, they're talking about removing the basketball courts. Now, they moved it from one side before and put the playground for the kids, which is fine. They put the court over here by itself. Then they added a soccer field right next to it. So, from what I hear, complaints are about basketballs being dribbled, disturbing neighbors. However, at 7 in the morning, I can hear yelling and screaming from the soccer field. And I thought they were playing basketball one morning. I got up to run up to the plate, and it was all people playing soccer. So my concern is if you're going to take away something based on noise complaints, I mean, I allowed that. I didn't call in and complain about it. And I don't think very many of us that grew up in the neighborhood complained either. I think what's going on is people who just moved in the neighborhood, who may play soccer, and it's okay on those days, but the days that they're not playing and they hear basketballs dribbling, it's an issue then. And by me growing up in that neighborhood, I know the neighborhood. And I know that it started as a low-income neighborhood, and now you can't even get a house for less than $500,000. So what does that do to the community? It breaks it up. Because most people can't get a job, because most of the jobs, if someone's going to hire you, you have to fit their criteria. So it's hard to get a job that's going to afford a $500,000 home. So therefore, everybody I knew from Parkview has to move. So now everybody that's new, I don't know them, they don't speak to me. But if they do speak, it's like in passing. There's really no intention to get to know you. So I feel like it's not my community anymore. And now when I come to the town hall meeting or the ANC meeting and I see all these faces that I've never seen before, I feel like we've lost the community. And now to get rid of the rest of us, you're taking away the things that keep us there. And it bothers me because I have to hear these things. That's just one of the many things. Convenience stores. Okay, I'll give you two more.
I didn't hear you make an announcement yet.
Announcements, I'm sorry. The convenience stores in our community are overpriced. We have to leave our communities to go find something more affordable. It's my first time at one of these meetings, so forgive me if I'm going off the topic or I'm not sure how to do it.
Well, let me just say, you have one of the best ANC commissioners in the city, and it's the Kent base, so you really should be addressing whatever concerns you have today. At this time in our meeting is when we do community announcements. I have not heard you make an announcement yet. You've been speaking for.
But I appreciated what he said. I appreciate what he
That's
said.
the whole, that's the issue right now. Nobody wants to hear the truth.
But he says that we have
There's nothing changing about it either.
All right. I'm taking control of the meeting back right now. I will say I've also appreciated what you had to say, even though the format was a little off. And I'm okay if you have another statement that you'd like to make as well. What I would like before you leave is if I could get your contact information. I would love to meet you one-on-one and have an in-depth conversation about all of the issues, whether they're relevant to something on the agenda tonight or more of a long-term vision. Because I agree with you, the neighborhood has to be inclusive. Residents who have lived in the neighborhood their whole lives need to continue living in their neighborhoods. There's absolutely, we all have to fight regardless of how long we've lived there or when we moved in to not push anyone out. One thing I will say with regards to the basketball, or should I say Parkview Recreation Center, when the fields were starting to get renovated, you may remember Jim Graham got us about $1.2 million to renovate the old softball field back when Mayor Fenty was in office. And I will admit that I became a little bit of a fly in the ointment with that process, simply because what they wanted to do was give us a new AstroTurf baseball diamond. And I kind of pulled Mr. Graham aside and said, you do know that no one in the neighborhood is playing baseball, right? We've tried to have a couple of pickup baseball games. We couldn't get anyone to go there. And so the solution was it delayed the project by about 2 years, but we got a regulation-sized basketball court instead of the smaller one because we recognized that basketball is very important to the community, and we have the annual tournament in the summer. And so we got them that regulation-sized basketball court specifically because of the community that's been there for many, many decades. The soccer field was something to fill the space because it wasn't big enough for anything else. Now, right now, the money that the mayor has put in the budget, that's something I've been fighting for 3 years, 4 years. 3 years ago, DPR said they were gonna put it in the budget, the mayor took it out. 2 years ago, the mayor finally put it in, and it's still there, and so I'm very happy about that. But it's not to take away the basketball court, it's to reconstruct the facility that's sitting at the corner of Otis and Warder. Because the facility is awkwardly laid out, it's hard for community meetings, it's not optimal for community programming, but I am very, very committed that we're only going to do this as long as the entire community is in the room telling us what the building should be for their needs. So that's something I'm deeply committed to, but the reason I'm pushing for that is because every other inch of that facility has been renovated, but not that building. And to me, it is completely unacceptable that a neighborhood like ours has not had the investment in something like recreation when you have facilities in the city like Ellington, which had huge cost overruns because it's west of the park. I think we're worth the same investment, and that's why I've been fighting for it. But that said, I sincerely want to sit down and talk to you, because I think you have a powerful voice, I think you have an important voice, and I know there are many neighbors just like you that may not be here tonight, but they have something to say too, and I want to hear from everybody.
And I have two short things. First, we do appreciate your comments, and you did indicate that this was your first meeting. I've been on this ANC commission, this is my 10th term, so 20 years, on and off, serving on the school board, serving the government, and we've been fighting these very issues all the time. You said you had to come all the way over here for the meeting. Well, this is central because our borders go to 16th Street and to Park Place. So we're trying to find a central location that's convenient to everyone. There are not a lot of places in our ward that will accommodate this size of crowd. And it depends on the issues, what the complexion of the ordinance is. It's always been that way. I think it's going to be that way. If you have a burning issue, you get your neighbors and friends and you come out here. And it has very little to do with race or ethnicity or economic. It has to do with particular issues. Now, we've had, when the kids needed something, this place was full of children, and we funded their programs. When you have a developer who has a hot issue, you have the pro people, you have the con people, and they're here. So this is truly a community meeting. We meet once a month. We have 5 standing committees, and we have, I think, 4 ad hoc committees. Plenty of work to go around. You're just finding out about us, but we've been here, sweetie. We're going to stay here. We're going to continue working with you and each person out here. And John came in, baptism by fire. Sarah, she hates to hear my phone come up because she know I'm going to give her a hard time. But that's what we do. We try to work with everybody in the community. It's kind of difficult. We're unpaid and unappreciated, but we're out here anyhow because we care as much or probably more than the average citizen because we're doing this out of our own time and our own cost. We get nothing. We don't even get reimbursed. It's so hard to get reimbursed for taxi and gas fees. It's not even.
That's not in the cards.
So I just want you to know you're welcome. Next meeting, bring people with your issue.
If this isn't the right platform, what's the use of bringing a bunch of neighbors for you to say you're not making any announcements?
Oh,
No, I'd say,
no, and I said,
no,
I said, I'm
yeah,
hold fast to that.
Commissioner Wright's
You gotta make it.
I said, right now we're at community announcements, but if there's a longer, a much more focused thing you want to talk about, we're happy to add you to the agenda as perhaps a presentation, or if there's an agenda item, we're happy to add that agenda item. If there's an action item that you want us to vote to support something that the community wants. So there are definitely opportunities to have you on the agenda where we can give you more time. I think part of the concern was, I don't want to speak for Commissioner Wright-Smith, but community announcements is mostly like a meeting that's going on in the community. It's supposed to be about 1 minute, and it's very clear that you have a love of the community and you have a lot that you want to say, and in a way, you're selling yourself short by only trying to limit yourself to a 1-minute announcement. You actually deserve much more time, and you deserve the opportunity to be on the agenda where it makes sense so that we can have the back and forth that we're actually having right now. But what we're having right now would make more sense as a presentation, or it would make more sense as an agenda item, because then you do get more time, and the entire community can have more time to actually discuss the issue.
So is there a platform that exists for neighbors to come out and talk to the leaders of the community, other than this?
Well, other than this, what we can always do is any of us can set up a meeting in the community. So like if you and your neighbors don't want to come to Tubman on this particular day, like on the second Wednesday of the month, I don't know about Commissioner Holmes, but I would be happy to schedule a meeting, for instance, at the Parkview Recreation Center, which is more, I think, more conveniently located. And it wouldn't be as structured as this meeting. We could talk about anything. And I'd be happy to give you 2 hours, 3 hours, however long we needed to actually get into it.
So talking to you would make a difference in the community?
We don't work miracles, sweetheart. We can change this didn't just happen.
Yeah.
You bring it to our attention on those issues that we can help you resolve, we will, like your concerns of the basketball court, and I think he addressed those. If you have some specific issues to your specific community, then your single member commissioner, happy to hold a meeting for you, we do it. Petco just held a series of about 20 meetings all through the community.
I think we need to have something where we can teach all these young people how to create jobs for themselves. They can own their own businesses.
We don't do that here. That's what we're trying to get you to understand.
But this is the community, so where else can we do it?
The mayor's office, the city
So we're gonna take
council
everybody to the
office,
mayor's office so they can turn us away?
elected officials to take care of those issues. They do civics right here.
Teach ourselves. I see. But I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, and I will give you my information so we can continue this conversation.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to be kind of an afterthought after that more broad conversation, but I do have a couple announcements. My name's Jennifer Kuiper, and I'm the Lower George Avenue Main Street Director. And given just the topics that we've just been talking about community and social cohesion and the changes in the neighborhood, there are a lot of groups, community-based groups that are working to create opportunities to build relationships and mutual appreciation, break down stereotypes, and come together in mutual support. So there's, I wasn't gonna make this announcement, but next Wednesday there is another Neighbor Up night, which is called Party with a Purpose, and you can bring your particular issue that you'd like to share with folks, and it's gonna be at the Park Morton. It's the first time that they're doing it at Park Morton, and a lot of people haven't ever spent time in our Park Morton public housing, so it's a great opportunity to meet residents that are there. And that is at 6:30 in the community room.
April
Wednesday, is that the 18th?
18th. It's the 18th. You said a week from today?
Yes.
That's an 18th.
Yep. So that's just one example. We have a couple, the organization, the nonprofit that manages the Main Street grants is District Bridges, and there's a couple of volunteer opportunities in the community. One is for movie nights, and there will be a Parkview and a Columbia Heights, Pleasant Plains, Petworth, and Mount Pleasant movie nights, the first, each Friday of June. So those are coming up, and if you feel like volunteering with that, you can connect us with us in District Bridges. June 16th is Columbia Heights Day. So if you would like to volunteer to help with that, or if you're a vendor and would like to have a booth, those openings are available. And it's not just residents, it's our small businesses that are our neighbors in our community. And a lot of them are facing a lot of the pressures with the changes. So we try to support the small businesses with free seminars. So our next one that's coming up is actually negotiating with your landlord. And that's on Tuesday, the 24th, at the District Bridges office, which is right above Meridian Heights, also where ANC holds many of their meetings. So if you have a favorite business in the neighborhood that you think might be struggling or you want to make sure stays in the neighborhood, these seminars are designed to really support them. We're doing another one about public safety and addressing aggressive customers and just tips to de-escalate situations that keep them safe, keep people safe. So you can follow us on Facebook. That's probably an easiest way to see these events that are coming up. And actually, we're very appreciative to Commissioner Miller that's helping and supporting us with the public safety for our businesses. And we know a lot of our business owners are facing violence themselves. So how do we take care of the people that we really care about so they stay with us in the neighborhood? The last thing is an invitation. If you've been at any community meeting over the last couple of months, you've probably already heard this, but we are doing a community survey to invite neighbor input into changes that are going on related to the Main Street program on Georgia Avenue. And it's a really quick survey. It just gives you things that you love, things that you'd like to see change, things that you'd like to keep hold of. So I have some back here, and I'm just going to pass it out. If you guys want to fill it out here and leave it with me, or drop it off in our mailbox if you want. So I went over my time. Yeah, exactly.
Did I also see online, are you also holding a candidate forum of some sort?
So there is a candidate forum for Ward 1 council member, and it's not a District Bridges as much as it is Small Business Week is having, I think it's May 1st, and I'm looking at Commissioner Base.
Why?
Because I assume you will be there.
I will be there, but I don't have it. I don't have anything beyond tomorrow etched in my brain right now.
So I will look that up. Unless
Is it May 1st?
back to you.
Okay. I could look at my calendar.
Sorry, I thought you were hosting that.
I apologize. I know that we've been involved in planning activities for Small Business Week that's coming up, and that's part of it. And there's going to be a focus on
All
support
right,
for small
it's
businesses.
District Bridges BID Candidate Forum, Tuesday, May 1st, 7 to 9, Midlands Beer Garden. Does that sound right?
Yes, and Tom Sherwood, who you guys might know from the Washington Post, will be moderating, and we are hopeful that from radio, thank you. Yes. Roger Mondi will also be co-hosting it. Apparently they have matching tattoos, so you can ask about that. So, thank you for that reminder. There's a lot going on, a lot of ways to get involved and volunteer if that's what you'd like to do. So, I'm here all night along with Sarah, so.
Well, thank you. We will move on then. Thanks. Going to committee reports, Commissioner Miller, do you have anything with education?
I'll just let everybody know our last education committee meeting was we continued the conversation on demographics and calculating students and the challenges of mobilities between charters and the educational landscape of schools. Our next meeting will be April 23rd, and we will be back at the ANC office at 4300 11th Street. 3400 11th Street, excuse me, right above Meridian Pint. And our tentative schedule will look at budget updates. We are going to discuss the advisory group on community use of public space, which I know was a big issue starting last summer. And also looking at district grants and ways to improve access and outreach to better encompass our schools and those in our community who need it most.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barczyk, Transportation.
What time is that?
7 p.m.
We last month had a transportation committee meeting. Scott Williamson was kind enough to come with laptop in tow to dive deeply into Georgia Avenue pedestrian safety issues. Really look forward to following up with that. A main focus we want to tackle is the task force that we started earlier this year, and also related to the DDOT presentation that happened last month. We want to combine these things into a community workshop that DDOT will come out to and other agencies that are related to transportation issues sometime later this spring. So I know a lot of you have signed up for our listserv. This weekend I'll be sending out email notes and reminders. I could really use the help planning that workshop, and we'll be trying to find space to do that and making sure people from DDOT can come to that. So if you have a transportation issue, I know myself or Commissioner Love Wade are happy to have you help us out. Thank you. And the next meeting will be scheduled for Thursday, April 26th at the ANC offices above Meridian Pine on 11th. So I'll send out an email, but thank you.
Thanks. I will give an update on public spaces. So, I think it was a week ago, I kicked off our first committee on parks and public spaces. It's clear to me that we have a lot going on with whether it's the Columbia Heights Civic Plaza, the future of Parkview Recreation, Powell Park, the 11th and Park Road property. But we have a lot going on, and it seems to me that we have a lot of community members who care, but we tend to be working in silos. So I kicked off a new committee where we can focus on all of that and try to have an umbrella that harnesses all of that so that we're being thoughtful. Also, I know that on any one of these issues, it's likely that the ANC will be asked to take a position, and so I want a vetting process with a series of working groups per particular property. I do not yet have a date for the second meeting simply because, excuse me, as a new committee, one of the things we're trying to figure out is which day of the month works best for most people. But, well, we do have a front runner, but I don't know if any day is going to be perfect. That said, if this is an issue that you care about, please see me sometime before you leave so that I can have your email address and I will include you in future emails. They will also be distributed publicly by listservs, and once we have a regularly scheduled date, time, and place, we will also be posting in various locations so that people don't have to rely on electronic communication. Moving on to presentations. I see we have 5. Everyone, just because these are 5 minutes apiece, don't feel like you have to take all 5 minutes. The first one is Lieutenant Connors from the 4th District. If you could come up and give us an update, that would be fantastic.
So I'm Lieutenant Connors. This is my patrol service area that I'm kind of my area of responsibility. So I'll first make a brief announcement. Our community meeting for PSA 409 is next Wednesday. Sounds like there's some competition. I think Pepco's got one. It's been a party meeting or something. So I recommend my meeting. It'll be at 750 Park Road at 7 o'clock next Wednesday. It's just if you want to hear more details I'm going to give you right now about crime. We get into more in-depth Q&As and stuff like that. So that's next Wednesday. Updates on crime, basically 409, which covers Parkview and a little bit west of that. We have a violent crime reduction right now of 21%. We look at crime stats a couple different ways, but the most important way we kind of track it is year to date. So if you look at April 11th compared to where we were at April 11th of last year, it's 21% decrease in violent crime. However, we have a pretty significant increase in property crime. So burglaries, thefts, theft from autos, people stealing cars, that stuff is up. Theft continues to kind of be a nagging problem for us. What I would say and recommend, there's been a couple burglaries lately, and when you take a look at those, it's people not locking their doors. It's they're going to bed and leaving their first floor windows up, stuff like that. So we can make it more difficult for the criminal by just doing some simple things, right? If you're going to be upstairs giving your kid a bath, lock the back door. All right, if you're going to sleep, shut and lock all your doors and your windows and stuff like that. Because what these guys do, and I've seen them do it. I used to drive an unmarked car. They'll go around and they'll just check knobs, front door knobs. They'll do it with cars. They'll just check knobs. They'll just go up and down the street checking knobs, things like that. And they're looking for that soft target, somebody that didn't lock a door. So I recommend can, please do that. Please shut and lock your windows and doors, especially even if you're going to go run to the convenience store for 10 minutes. It makes a huge difference. Be surprised how many burglaries reports that we take where somebody said, I just went to CVS to get some Advil, and I come back and my laptop on my kitchen table is gone. This is urban living, right? So everybody's close quarters. People can just see inside your windows. People are looking by, and they'll just notice what's on your kitchen table just by walking by the sidewalk in front of your house. So that's why it's super important. Even shutting your curtains, things like that, or just not leaving expensive items visible from the street, because they see it, they check your knob, it's open, they take it. All right, that's a huge thing with property crime. Same with cars. You'd be surprised how many people leave money out in the cup holder, or they leave a laptop in their back seat, or a bag, purse, a luggage, and these are all visible, and people see it, and they'll smash your window and they'll take it. So we just try to tell people, make it more difficult, and be careful about what you leave visible, whether it be your house, your car, and stuff like that. And that makes a huge difference with property crime. I did say we have 21% decrease in violent crime. We're ahead of the curve. The 4th district as a whole has a decrease of 7%. So we're ahead of just where the district is as a whole. And we're kind of carrying the district actually. But we did have right now we are trending with a slight increase in assaults with dangerous weapons, particularly knives. All right, so we focus on gun crime a lot in DC. So when we take away the guns, what's next is the knives. And so we have had a small increase in assault with knives. Some of those are robberies gone bad. Guy asks for a phone. No, I'm not giving you my phone. And then he gets a knife out. All right. So with that, I would just say somebody's robbing you. They got a knife. It's not worth getting stabbed over. Just give them the robbery. And there's should be another pedestrian nearby. You get a phone call 911. That's kind of some brief stuff on the alley. So I'll get some more details next Wednesday. If there may be any questions.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I'm actually somewhat surprised that you didn't mention that there was a homicide in our community.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised too because I wrote it down. So
I know I was reading, I believe, I don't know if the posters or where that violent crime is down 13% citywide in the first quarter, but homicides are up 14%. So I don't really think that's something to be, dismissive of. Now, I do understand that the homicide we had was inside a business, and I know that we have some challenges with the business owner, hours of operation, whether they have a safety plan, if they're actually conducting a safe environment. So I really don't see that per se as a policing issue, other than the fact that it is near the intersection of Georgia and Newton, and we have had so much going on the 600 block of Newton, and we have had so much just violence in that area. That said, I'm not terribly surprised that when something happened that led to someone dying of blunt force trauma, that it happened near that intersection.
Yeah.
So I guess that's just kind of a way of saying I'm just surprised that of everything you talked about, that wasn't even recognized, because we certainly have a lot of work to do, and I know it's going to be work through DCRA. It's going to be work with the business. It's work with the Office of Asian and Pacific Islanders. I mean, we have a lot of work to do with a lot of different agencies, but I certainly don't need blind eyes turned to something where no one should die because they went to a laundromat.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I do apologize. That was on my list of things to mention. And if nobody is familiar with it, we did have a homicide in the 3500 block of Georgia inside the laundromat. One gentleman was attacked by 2 other suspects, and he died of blunt force trauma the next day. He succumbed to his injuries. So, and that's definitely being actively investigated by homicide branch. I can't get into too many details about that as far as the investigation part of it. It appears he was specifically targeted, so it's not like a random act of violence. But it is obviously a serious event that doesn't even take it seriously for sure. So.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of where I'm concerned. Is that on the one hand, you know, it's easy to say, well, it wasn't totally random, people knew each other, but again, we have systemic issues at this general location. And so this is clearly where we need more services, we need more of the agencies involved, we need to make sure that the business is operating a safe environment. I mean, you know, I know we're not gonna solve it here, but it's just not something we can walk away from, because the way I look at it is even when two individuals know each other and things get a little heated, that doesn't protect the people that are around them. And nor should either of those two individuals lose their life over it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully there will be more to share at your meeting next week.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't want this ignored. And I will say I had a very long conversation with Commander Griffin about it, and I think we see eye to eye that this is going to take all of us being involved and working together and bringing the right resources to bear. But you know, last year, unfortunately, we had a homicide in July. This year, it was in April. That's not the, you know, that's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, for anybody.
Right. Yeah, and that's not the trend we want to start. I mean, it's just now getting warm, and typically things get busier when it's warm, so it's probably not the best way to start off with the springtime. I definitely agree with that. I will say DC is really good about collaborative efforts. I mean, the interagency workings in the city are top notch. So if there is a particular agency that works with another agency that's to solve a problem with a business like that, if it can be done, it will be done, because that's just something we excel at here. So.
Yeah, Commissioner Miller.
Right, I just wanted to clarify that this meeting on Wednesday is a combined PSA. It's 409 and 302, which we also just had a homicide on the 15th. So I know that there are many in my community that are very concerned about it for all of the reasons that were just mentioned.
Yeah, it's 302 as well. Yeah, Lieutenant Hodge should be there. Yep.
Yes.
That homicide happened in the street. I think that started in the parking lot, thinking on the inside.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Thanks. All right.
All right.
Moving on. Someone here from Murals DC. Oh, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Lyons, and I am a public affairs specialist for the Department of Public Works, and I also manage the Murals DC project. We are a graffiti prevention program. We've been around since 2007. This is our 11th year. We're responsible for more than 70 murals throughout the district, in every single ward, most of them in this ward. And I'm here this evening because we actually have received a request from the property at 3020 14th Street. That's Unity Healthcare. And they are interested in having a mural on their wall, and we're considering it. We have not finalized our sites yet, but we are considering it. And we just like to let the community know that we may have a mural that may be installed. And mostly we like to let the community know because we welcome your feedback. If you have, typically when we have a mural, we like to have some level of community involvement. We had a lot of conversation this evening about just sort of neighborhoods, neighborhoods changing the history of the neighborhood. And a lot of our murals usually tell some history about the neighborhood, especially, things that sort of record or document just sort of who we are, who we were as a community. And so we invite people who may have some things that they like to share about the community that they might like to see the artists think about if we do select that site, as they go about selecting the design, so that we're actually painting murals that aren't just pretty, but also sort of are documenting Washington D.C.'s history and letting people know about Washington D.C.'s past. I have put some flyers in the back, so you have my telephone number and email address for Murals DC. If you'd like to just sort of reach out and just send some ideas, comments, suggestions, things about maybe the character of the community. If you have photos or images that you'd like for us to consider, we don't really tell the artists exactly what to paint, but we do give them concepts, and of course the property owner will speak with them about design and image too. So, does anyone have any questions?
Where's it gonna be? Is it in the alley part of the
So,
center?
sidewall, it's sort of a sidewall that's facing the sidewalk, which would be very visible to vehicular and pedestrian traffic heading south. Any other questions? Thank you. I'll be here until the end.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shaw, solar. There you go. I lost you, sorry.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Zach Schalk. I'm actually a neighbor. I live in ANC 1805 over at 16th Park. But I'm here tonight with my organization, Solar United Neighbors. You might also know us as DC Sun or the Mount Pleasant Solar Cooperative. We change our names a lot. But we are a nonprofit that helps a group of neighbors go solar together and get a discount through their bulk purchasing power, and we provide technical, vendor-neutral support through the whole process. And here in DC, we've helped more than 500 DC homes go solar over the last decade since we started with just a group of neighbors in Mount Pleasant who wanted to go solar together a decade ago. What I'm here to talk to you about tonight is right now we currently have a district-wide solar co-op that's open. Usually over the past decade we've done just neighborhood level co-ops. We've done more than 24 of those. This one is open to everybody in the district. And it's called the 51st State Solar Co-op. And what's really exciting about it is we have grant funding from the DC government through the Solar for All program to help low and moderate income households go solar at no cost to them while completely owning their system. And so the Solar for All program, the grant that we have, we are committed to helping 215 low and moderate income households go solar over the next year and a half. And we've just been getting started with that, but right now we have around 80 people who are already in the co-op, and that's a market rate and people who are qualified for the Solar for All grant funding. We are holding information sessions all around the district. We've already held 6 of these, and we'll be doing at least one basically each month for the next 18 months if you'd like to earn more. And I do have some information about our next one that's coming up. But basically how the program works, you can go to our website, solarunitedneighbors.org/51st state. I had some flyers back there, but I wildly underestimated how many people were going to be here tonight, so I think I ran out, and sorry about that. But if you go to that website, solarunitedneighbors.org/51st state, you'll learn more about the co-op, and you can join right there. There's no commitment to joining. Basically, joining just allows you to get more information from us. And the way the co-op works, the group makes a decision after we put a RFP out to area installers. The group makes a decision on which bid they prefer, and they get a group rate discount, and everybody gets an individualized quote based on that group rate. So you still get to decide whether or not this is the right decision for you, and no money exchanges hands until you sign a contract with an installer. So there's really no risk to it. It's just an easy way to get some technical support and more information to learn about going solar. The way that the Solar for All grant works, if you join and you think you qualify, and on the flyer I have more information, but it's based on the area median income, and it goes up to 80% of the area median income. So that means for a household of 4, the household income is around $75,000, and it's related to the size of the household. So there's more information about that, the specifics on that on our website. But basically, if you indicate that you think you're eligible, you'll get a call from us, and we'll walk you through the process for qualifying. And that you work with the Department of Energy and Environment to qualify. And then basically, once you qualify, you can get a solar system installed in your home, the cost completely covered, and the system will be sized to cut your electric bill in half. And basically our estimates are that a Solar for All system over the next 15 years will save the home $10,000 in electric costs, and that doesn't include the additional revenue that or the additional income you'll be able to have through the Solar Renewable Energy Credit program, which you can sell to Pepco from the energy that you're producing on your house on top of your electric bill savings.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, how does that tie in with the upgrades that Pepco is going to be doing? We're
also have information on our website about grid reform in DC.
See what we do.
But yeah, the program is funded by the Expansion Amendment Act, or the Renewable Portfolios Standard Expansion in 2016 that created the Renewable Energy Development Fund. So that's the money is coming from what PEPCO is paying into that fund. So there's a lot more information. We have an information session coming up on May 24th over at the Harry Thomas Recreation Center. And this Saturday, we also have the DC Solar Congress, which is an all-day free public event up at UDC. You can learn about all things solar. So we'll have everything from just a Solar 101 basic overview up to a really deep dive into the Solar for All program, and a bunch of stuff in between. I may have run out of flyers back there for this as well, but I have some extras if anybody's really interested. But you can also, if you're interested in the DC Solar Congress, just go to solarunitedneighbors.org/DC Solar Congress and you can learn more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next is it Jordana and Marin detail on the Columbia Heights cleanup?
Hello, everyone. I think I met some of you, or at least saw some of you several months ago. I came and proposed a neighborhood-wide cleanup for Earth Day. Earth Day is upon us. It is not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, April 21st. If you don't live in Columbia Heights proper, I hope you'll still consider joining us. Obviously, a lot of us just commute through Columbia Heights. We get off at the metro, we take the buses there, the circulator, we go to the grocery store, what have you. So I really hope that everyone finds a reason to join. I have a bunch of flyers in the back. There's a Facebook page, there's an Eventbrite where you can register and answer a couple extra questions if you want to volunteer more, if you want to help promote. We're going to have a flyering session this Sunday, and probably an in-person meeting before the big day next week. So I'm happy to include you on the emails. Columbia Heights is an awesome, awesome place. I know you all feel that way. There's a lot of trash, and it's going to take a lot of people to handle it. I know that a lot of our neighbors do individual cleanups on a regular basis, and I think that's so great. What I'm hoping to do is complement that with a bigger, more visible single-day event so that people can feel and really see in numbers how important this is to everyone in the community, that we have clean, beautiful streets. So I hope you join us, and I really want to thank Zach, I don't think I've ever mentioned or said your last name. I want to thank Commissioner Rybarczyk. Is that right? All right. Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Castañón, who's not here tonight, but the three of you have been so helpful. So kudos to you, and again, flyers in the back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last presentation, is there someone here from the Restaurant Association of Greater Washington? That's right.
Hi, thanks. My name is Colin Pitts. I'm actually not here representing the Restaurant Association. I'm representing a campaign called Save Our Tips, which is a campaign with restaurant owners, bar owners, and operators, along with workers who are here to talk about Initiative 77, that's on the June ballot, and our concerns with it. So let me first, in my 5 minutes, raise your hand who knows or doesn't know about Initiative 77, the June ballot. Who doesn't know? Sorry. Doesn't know. It's a little bit of education. Who doesn't know? So Initiative 77 would raise the pre-tip base wage of tip workers from what it is currently right now, which is set to go to $3.89 in July, to $15. Second question, how many know that the DC Council, along with advocates, workers, and restaurant owners, all got together and raised the minimum wage to $15 2 years ago? Okay, so the minimum wage in DC, which is everyone's required to pay, whether and earn, whether you're a tip worker or a non-tip worker, is set to move to $15. It's $12.50 now. It moves to $13.25 in July, and then we'll move in a couple years to $15. If you're a tip worker, right now you will. Right now it's your base pre-tip pay. Many restaurants pay more than that. It's $3.33 an hour. You include that with your tips. If you do not make $12.50, soon to be $15, the restaurant or the bar, by law, has to, it's called a tip credit, bring you to that minimum wage. The average server tips we make per hour at servers and bartenders is $30 to $40 an hour here in DC. For tip workers, including hosts and bussers and food runners, it's between $20 and $40 an hour. This would bring that base pay, pre-tip pay to $15. I'll be honest, restaurants in DC can't afford to keep the service staff they have now and pay them $15 an hour and allow tipping still to occur. Tipping. Where this has happened in other states and jurisdictions, you've seen a couple different things. Every restaurant in DC, so it's not sort of like a collusion, has to decide what they're going to do. You've seen some restaurants close down. People down on 14th Street know Gibellina. It's a bar down on 14th Street in Aquadue. That restaurant owner used to own a restaurant in San Diego, and he had to close it down because of a law passed in California. So some restaurants have gone to either raising menu prices, which can only do a little bit. They've gone to obviously cutting staff and cutting shifts. So instead of maybe having 4 servers, they'll go 3 servers. 2 bussers go to 1 busser. And they've moved to what's called a service charge. I think we've all gone to a restaurant and maybe had a group of people, and there's been an automatic gratuity, sometimes they call it. A tip belongs solely to the worker. The restaurant or the bar cannot touch it. Whether the tip to the bartender, the server, the restaurant can't touch it. The service charge belongs solely to the operator. And what we found in other jurisdictions is the operator has decided to keep some of that wage for themselves to compensate for higher labor costs, share some of that with the tip worker, and even share some of the back of the house, because we all kind of know the disparity that exists between the back house and front house. Initiative 77 would not do anything to address the disparity that exists between the back of the house and the front of the house. In fact, on its supposition of like the tip worker would earn $15 plus tips, which sounds great, it would even increase disparity between servers and bartenders and folks in the back of the kitchen. We have a website called SaveOurTips.com. Because of social media, we have a Twitter handle, so Twitter handle, an Instagram feed. We just had a big, at the Hamilton restaurant down in like 14th and K, we had a big gathering of tip workers, about 60 or 70, 62 or so. The Washington City paper was there. We're going around to, and thank you very much, sorry, I'm trying to get my 5 minutes. Please thank you very much, 1A for allowing us, it's 1B, sorry, no, I'm a 1A, sorry, I think 1A for allowing us to speak for you. So we're going around trying to educate the public about this. It's a June primary, which is kind of weird. They put a ballot initiative on a primary ballot because mostly Democrats are going to come out, maybe some Republicans. Independents don't normally come out in a primary, so this is going to be very interesting to see. But we're here to educate the public and talk to the ANCs about the concerns that both operators and workers have and what might be resulting of
What's
this.
the recommendation? I mean, I don't know what you want.
Oh, well, I mentioned vote. What I want, vote no. We're asking everyone. We're asking everyone, giving our concerns and asking people to vote no. We're asking ANCs if they're so inclined to. We're going to be creating a sign-on letter. If they're so inclined to sign on to support the workers and the restaurant community.
I'm trying to get this in my mind because I'm still really confused on it.
I'm sorry.
So I know the difference between the front workers who actually get the tips and the back workers who are the service people who support the waiters and the wait staff.
Mm-hmm.
And they get a portion of your tip or a portion of the house tip. I'm not sure how that.
It's no one standard. Different places do it differently. There are some places that pool their tips, and then they'll do some percentage that maybe servers get this and bartenders get this, and there's some places
So
do that.
y'all like that. That's what you want to keep.
we want to keep the current system because
You don't want the new proposed system, which will do what?
the new proposed system would raise the pre-tip minimum wage, which is right now $3.33, moving to $3.89, then we'll move in 2 years to $5. We don't want it to be set at 15 because that would increase from $5 threefold the labor cost, forcing restaurants to make cuts other places because they will not give first cuts to make other places, including getting rid of tips and moving probably to a service charge. And if they move to a service charge, that server will not fully realize their tips and
So by voting no, you're actually asking to rescind the $15 minimum wage for tip workers.
the change in law to no. See, this is what a confusing thing about it is.
Really?
I'm so sorry. All right, as I said before, the DC Council a couple of years ago passed a law raising the minimum wage to $15. That means everyone has to make $15. Everyone, at least $15. How it happens for tip workers is that whatever their base hourly wage is and what they bring in tips, if that does not equal $12.50 now, but soon to be $15, then the operator by law has to come out of pocket to make that person whole. What this new law, what this change in law would do was bring that base wage, that pre-tip wage from $3.89 soon to be $5, from, let's just use $5 to be massive, from $5 to $15. What we've seen and what restaurants are trying to figure out for their business models is that they cannot afford to pay the service workers up front $15, and particularly the size of the volume of tip workers, $15 an hour, and them to receive tips. And what we've seen in other jurisdictions, among menu prices, staff shortage, even closures, are restaurants and bars moving to what's called a service charge. So whatever that service charge, let's say, I'm just making it was $100, you left $20, that $20 would not no longer belong to the tip worker. It would belong to the operator. And then it's up to the operator's full discretion to distribute that tip how he or she see fit. What it means at the end.
That's in addition to a tip, or is that like that 18% for a part of the six?
Yeah, that's it. That's not in addition to a tip. That's going to be the case. But what in the end we've seen is tip workers make less take home money. And as I said, right now, servers and bartenders make between $30 and $40 an hour. All of tip workers combined, using hosts, bussers, and food runners, make between $20 and $40 an hour on average across the city.
So that just says everybody just got to pay close attention and go to your contract.
Yeah, and find out more information.
Before we go to Val, Commissioner Barron has a question. Sorry, Commissioner.
I missed your affiliation with the industry. Are you a restaurant owner?
I'm not only I'm a restaurant owner, and I'm also part of the Save Our Tips campaign. We're going out, and we had workers at 2C last night, and at 6D, because there's so many, so we're spreading ourselves out. To be fully acknowledged, I own a Cork Wine Bar and Market on 14th Street. My wife and I opened it up about 10 years ago. And I'm here on behalf of not only myself, but my employees as well.
And I believe there's a question.
Oh, yes.
Could you stand up to me?
Well, again, this campaign is solely about this ballot issue, not about the general how compensation happens in the restaurant industry. And again, how we had this discussion a few years ago, there were advocates, restaurant owners, workers, and the city council coming together to make legislation to move forward. Just to push back on you a little bit, by law, so here in DC, I'm not only on the healthcare, I'm on the executive board of the DC Health Exchange. By law, every person in DC, by mandate, despite what Trump did, is going to have healthcare. By law here in DC, if you're a small business, and there's no limit to the size, if you offer, for instance, like your one shop offers healthcare for yourself, you have to offer healthcare for everyone in your shop. So, roughly about 60 to 70% of small businesses in the city offer healthcare to their, and I'm talking about small businesses, offer healthcare to their employees. And by law in DC, they have to pay half of that healthcare. So, I would say in the restaurant industry, about 80% of the restaurant industry here in DC offers health. Some of those are really small, these are a little taqueria shop, don't do it. And some of them don't really have employees, besides like family members. So healthcare, again, continue to make improvements, but healthcare is an issue that tip work, should you choose to have healthcare, you can choose to opt out of having from your business, but you have to get it on the individual market. But small businesses are offering healthcare. I think there's a larger question about how money is distributed or how payment is made, salaries in the restaurant industry. That's something for us to all figure out, decide. But again, I would say here in DC, and I know you worked in DC, I don't know if you work in DC, had worked in DC or not, but again, servers are making between 30 and 40 bucks an hour. Tip workers are making between 20 and 40 bucks an hour. They don't want to step back and have sort of a flat cap wage at $15 an hour. Be frank, if you worked it, take some of the incentive about service, out of the industry a lot, and it takes a lot of the money that they earn to make the living. We all know living in DC is not cheap. Live in DC, even folks there are folks in this industry who raise families as servers, just as a server, because they were fortunate to find a good place to work at and make this their living.
Thank you. Were there any?
I just want to add one little thing. So, to your comment, I did do 8 years in the restaurant business. It put me through college, it put me through grad school. And to be honest, I think servers don't work in the business that long to make minimum wage. They do it to make the 20, 30, 40 hours. Because you can work very, very hard and bring home substantially more than you could working minimum wage 8-hour shifts.
8-hour shifts.
So,
Much of that in cash.
So to preserve that, preserve sort of what many people do the work for.
Yeah, and thank you for that. There are forms in the back. I was a server and a busser and all that stuff through college as well. But I left some. I think I only have 40 because I didn't know how big this was. But there's an FAQ. We're looking to come back to here next month, perhaps either community notes or a formal proposal.
I'll just say,
sure.
Commissioner Rubarczyk has asked.
I was just wondering, through your long experience in restaurant business, have you encountered problems of enforcement or oversight of restaurants cheating that base wage up to 15 or base wage up to 12.50? Is that an issue that DC encounters that should be looked at?
Well, Councilmember Melissa Silverman, actually took this on herself to work with DUS to look at this enforcement, because it's always, being honest, DUS needs a lot of improvement. There's always been a claim by proponents that there is wage theft, but we haven't seen it. And without the city doing more enforcement, it's kind of hard to be honest, to say, oh, there's theft, because there's theft everywhere. You're always going to have bad actors. It is a prevalent problem in DC. Among our restaurant, I say my restaurant, but I know all the restaurants I know and restaurants who are part of the Restaurant Association, that doesn't happen at all. And this is a claim that Restaurant Opportunity Center, the organization out in New York that's bringing this, has made. We make the counterclaim. Well, then show us. If you know from your people coming to you saying, I'm being ripped off by my restaurant, then is it incumbent upon you to bring that to light? Either shame them in public or bring that to the city's attention. They have yet not, I remember Jerry McGuire, the whole show me the money. We're saying, show us the problem, because this looks like a solution, looking for a problem here. It doesn't exist. This was meant for, and they, by their own amendments, this was meant for large chain restaurants. There are 2,000 restaurants and bars in DC, approximately 2,000. 4, not 4%, 4 large chains. We got 2 IHOPs in this city. 96% of the restaurants in this city and bars are independently owned and operated like my shop.
Well, with that, I'm going to thank you.
Sorry.
No. But before you go, I want to give you my card because I do want to talk to you.
Sure.
Believe it or not, I have been following this issue, and I'd like to dig deeper into it.
Sure.
So please don't leave before we exchange.
Okay, I was going to come right over there.
There you go.
I'm only leaving because there are 2 kids, and I've got a babysitter that I can get home to. Because my wife is at the restaurant working right now.
Okay, very good.
But thank you guys so much, but please read up on your own.
We will then move on to the agenda. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Next, approval of the agenda. Yeah, I got his information. We have one thing I'd like to add to the agenda, but I'll put it at the end. So it was brought to my attention that there's some issue with the building permit at 1477 Girard Street Northwest. So I'd just like to ask the other commissioner's opinion about possible courses of action we can decide to take. That said, no, this is, so 1477 Girard. Apparently, there have been 3 houses that have been converted over the years. This is the 3rd one where a building permit has been issued. We have a small window left where we can make a decision as to whether or not we want to appeal. It's been brought to our attention that the 2 other houses, they're in the, I believe, RA2 zone. They've been approved by DCRA. They've been constructed. They have still not received certificate of occupancies because they're not passing their floor area ratio. So clearly these have been overbuilt for the site. The reason this one's been brought to our attention is because it's essentially a carbon copy of the other 2 with regards to the plans that have been filed. So there's a strong suspicion that once it's completed, it will also not conform to zoning. So anyway, I'm going to put that at the end of the agenda, and if we're all still here and we have quorum, we can deal with it then. So are there any other changes to the agenda, additions, deletions? Seeing none, I will move that we approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Next on the consent agenda, we have the minutes for March 2018, which I believe are in the binder. I would move that we accept the minutes as presented. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes pass. 8-0. So moving on to official business. The first item on the agenda is BZA case 19743, which is at 1432 Newton Street. Commissioner Miller, I believe this is yours.
So I believe Jamie and Peter Casey, is there any, Peter, were there any other neighbors that were able to attend tonight?
I think I'm the only one.
Okay. And then Jamie, the representative. So the owner is not able to attend. If you guys, if you'll recall, we postponed this to allow the owner to have a chance to meet with the community, to work on a compromise and find something that satisfied all parties. And so we pushed it to this, and unfortunately, Angel had to travel. So his representative is here to present the new plans, and then we also have Peter to sort of speak on behalf of the many, many neighbors that were engaged in this process. So, and I'll just, commissioners, I apologize. Apparently there was a glitch with FedEx or Kinko's, and so the letters of support for it to not make it into the binder. But I did send those electronically, so it should be in your email,
Okay.
along with the amended plans.
First thing on the big grant. We just get started, and then we did assessment 37, yeah. They got mad at me.
All right.
I'm Jimmy Solomon, the architect of Green Police tonight. And I want to thank Commissioner Miller for second to me. I think it's very helpful with that. So this is an existing flat on Newton Street that currently is 3 stories in the front over a cellar, and in the back of the building is 2 stories over a cellar. And so he's looking to expand the top floor to fill out the rest of the building footprint, which is currently non-conforming zoning. So this is a view kind of looking back towards the back. This is the area he's trying to fill in. This is a view of the back area itself. And then this is a view of the adjacent property at 1430. This would be looking back at the property. And we're trying to fill it. So, great.
So I didn't get to see pictures. Showed it out there.
I think I didn't,
Yeah, I think you could. And just to help me out, what specifically do you need approval for?
So we're looking for approval for a non-conforming structure being added to release from lot occupancy, although we're not increasing occupancy, we're just pulling from what's already there. Same thing with the rear yard, which also extends back, but again, we're not increasing it, we're just, actually, we brought it back as far as building goes, where we're originally. Also,
So I'm trying to get us somewhere where it's not so much dead space. Is the property being brought back like a foot to conform with the neighboring, with the abutting?
no, so originally, this was up at the very end of the existing building.
Yeah?
So in response to neighbor concern, we brought it back 14.5 feet. But essentially, this limits that infringement of light and air to neighbors. And we're going to decide that the neighbor window now is not blocked by the addition.
Okay.
In addition, there was a concern on the 1432 side that is not in the application
almost sort of L-shaped in that the third floor comes up higher than the second floor. The neighbors above me in my building, which is 1430, which is adjacent to it, currently have a window that looks out right across all those rooftops. They have a clear view. We also have a couple windows that go out that direction on our floor, the floor below. They get a lot of nice sunlight because of the opening. The initial plan was to build out the entire third floor to be the same size as the second floor, but Engel graciously agreed to only build out to where the window is and not build all the way out past the window, thus reducing the impact on our sunlight and on our neighbor's sunlight. So I spoke to a number of neighbors in the area. Another issue that had come up had been that he is currently renting the place, and there had been noise issues in the past with it. We raised all these concerns with Angel, and he's come up with ideas for addressing them, including putting noise provisions into his lease. And given that all of the neighbors in my building, all of my HOA have now signed letters of support. I've also spoken to the owners of 1434 on the other side of the building, and they are supportive. And I've sent out notification to all the people that signed on to the petition, and I haven't had anyone say they don't support. I invited them to come here tonight, but I'm the only one here, so.
Okay. So, Commissioner Miller, what I'd like a good sense of is the relief being requested, the community outreach process, and since I know that there was some concern, and where we currently are, if this is being supported.
As far as the outreach efforts, I think Mr. Casey described it well. He actually had originally approached me. I had addressed a couple other neighbors, and the original petition had 18 signatures on it, and then including the HOA of your building, and then also Mr. Percy, I believe, on the other side. The issues of lights and blocking the window, those have all been remedied through the compromise that Mr. Dunchov and his architect have come up with, pulling it back past the window. On the Monroe side, which is where some of the petitioners were, the biggest concern that they had was noise, and also a concern with the rooftop deck popping up, seeing it from the street. Removing the rooftop deck alleviated a lot of the concerns of noise, and then of course not being able to see the rooftop deck because it would not be there took care of that problem as well. So those that I also spoke to on your petition were satisfied, and also satisfied with the conversations that the owner was willing to have, and the willingness to be available for future tenants, and that he has said that in the future he is building it to live in. We hope that's true. We'd love to have another great neighbor. That's separate, I think, sort of from the other issues.
I would highlight that in place of the roof deck, there will be a balcony out the back, but the balcony will be at the level of the third floor, essentially.
And quickly, is there anyone here that would like to speak relevant to this issue? All right, Commissioner, are any commissioners with any follow-up questions? Commissioner Miller, is there a motion?
I would move that we approve this BZA application with the attached amendments and compromises and letters of support, etc.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next item, which is a letter of support for amplified sound at the Revival and Community Service Project at Columbia Heights Civic Plaza. I believe this was Commissioner Castagnon's, and she is not here. Was there anyone here, I mean, I know she talked about this at the committee of the whole, but was there anyone here that wanted to take the charge? I know that it's your SMD a little bit because of the butts. All right.
So what's the issue?
It's an event, and so they need a letter of support so that they can have amplified. It's a one-time event. It is from, looks like 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. on June 9th, 2018. So, yeah, I mean, we've done things like this in the past, so. All right, there you go. So, Commissioner Castellan's absent, I would make a motion to support the letter. Is there a second?
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The letter carries. Moving on to the request for the stipulated license at 3400 Georgia Avenue. I believe the owners of Kraken Axes are here. Would you mind coming up and telling us a little bit more about this?
Hi, good evening. My name is Anna Valero. I am one of the proud owners of Kraken Axes. We are a competitive axe throwing company that we started here in the district. To give you a little bit of an idea for those of you who have not joined us, and I'm happy to see a number of faces here of folks who have already stopped by. What we do is we put together a 2.5-hour axe experience, as we like to say, for patrons to come to. And what that looks like is we bring folks in and we get them safety trained first and foremost. That's really a theme that you will see a lot when you come to our facility. The safety training is a really huge component of what we do. It's how we start out all of our sessions. We walk people through some safety training and some key phrases that we use throughout the night in order to make sure that everyone does stay safe. Then what we do is we walk people through games a la darts. So really when you think of axe throwing, it's really just large format darts. And so we run people through a number of different games, and then for those folks that want to get into a little bit more fun, we'll do a little round robin tourney. It's really great for team building. We have a lot of corporate folks who come in because the really nice thing about it is it's a really level playing field. A lot of people haven't gone axe throwing yet, and it's something that is very multi-generational. And so we have folks that come in, getting to win and be the axe master for your competition, for your group is sort of the ultimate bragging rights. And so we run people through a little round robin tourney, and then we wrap up in about 2.5 hours. And so that is the experience that we are planning and have in production at 3400 Georgia Avenue, which is at the cross streets of Georgia Avenue and Morton. The license is we are looking to, ideally, once we finalize our drawings with our architects, we will have the indoor space, which will have Kraken Axes in it, but also really be a gathering place for the community. Something that we really look to do is we want to create one of those third places. It's not your home, it's not the office, but it's a place for you to gather. We have heard from a lot of folks who have just stopped by interested that they're really looking for another place where they can, pop open their laptop during the day and have a cup of coffee, and that's the type of experience that we want to be able to provide. We also want to continue to work with some of the organizations like the Main Street Organization and District Bridges and such in order to continue to have the space be one that can host a lot of community events. We understand that we are fortunate to have not just a large indoor space, but also a sizable outdoor space. And so what we are looking to do is to continue to find ways to utilize that space and make it a space that the community can have. We are working with our architect on ways in order to make sure that we can definitely mitigate the noise. We've hosted a few community coffees and heard from some of the community members that was one of their concerns. And so we're working with our architect on when we build a large fence on the side of the street where there is residential, that we're able to put in ways to mitigate that sound with things like acoustic block, but I won't bore you with the details of that type of engineering, mainly because I don't really understand it all. It's sort of like magic. And so what we will do is, the goal for us is also, what we've heard from the community is that they're looking for a place where they can bring their families as well. That's something that I know is really important to me. I know that finding places where my niece can run around in this city is not necessarily easy without, worrying about whether or not they're gonna run out onto the street or not. And so what we're looking to do is, as we build that outdoor space, make sure that it is built in a way where people will still be entering from Georgia Avenue, from the indoor facade, so that from our perspective, we can have people out enjoying hot pretzels and chicken nuggets out in the outdoor space while, not having to worry quite as much about kids running out into the street. So that's a little bit of a quick overview of what we have going on. I know that there are time limitations here, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about, both the business that we have there or things that we're doing in order to be, good community members.
Okay, I'm sure that there are a number of questions that commissioners may have, but I also know that there's a number of people from the community that are here tonight to talk about this. So I'm going to flip this a little bit. Before the commissioners weigh in, I'd like to hear from the community. So I'm glad we're in agreement. Yes, sure.
If I may ask.
You may.
So what we're talking about, cracking axes, is a big joint. When you throw axes, you chew. That's not what you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
One thing to keep in mind is that, just like.
Hold it, we're gonna get there, please.
And everyone can attest to this. There is one hard and fast rule. If you walk into the establishment and you are in any way intoxicated, or we even question for a minute whether or not you are in any way not sober, there is not an axe that you are touching. And so I don't care how many waivers anyone signs. At the end of the day, we pride ourselves on the fact that, as we say, we've had 0 accidents that have happened at our establishment, and that's a statistic that I intend to keep.
Okay. Maybe you want to stand a little bit over to your right. If members of the community who are here wanting to talk about this, if you would like to line up behind the microphone. I think what I'd like to hear everyone together, and then we can have the owner address those questions, and then the commissioners will get to ask additional questions.
So you're going to ask a question, each one, and then...
I would like, well, because there may be, some of them may ask similar questions, and I think for efficiency, if we could get all of those.
That's fine.
Okay. No, I appreciate that.
One point of clarification. My name is Tijuana Barnes, and I live in 738 Morton Street. 4 generations of my family has lived in that house over the span of almost 40 years. So that's where my concerns are coming from. Point of clarification. The time that you want these events to occur, can she clarify that prior to me making my concerns? The hours.
I think the hours are fair. I think everyone cares about that.
Sure, I know that's a concern that we've heard from a number of people. When you submit an ABRA application, something that, we're still in the nascent phases of deciding what our hours of operation are going to be. So when you submit an application and you don't put on any hours, ABRA defaults to putting on what the max number of hours are. I will tell you this, and I can attest for other folks as well. There is no intention to be awake at 4 in the morning out in a beer garden on Morton Street. That is definitely not, I'm in the business for long hours, but not those kinds of hours. Currently our hours,
Commissioner Wade.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
my concerns are surrounded with the usage of that space. And I know I'm probably decades or years too late, but previously it was a People's Drug Store, which was a CVS, which is like CVS, and then it was a grocery store, and I saw the necessity of those types of establishment in the residential area, and then you want to have an axe throwing organization selling alcohol in our community, and that we're trying so hard to strengthen. That concerns me. And then also, it's already hard, and I don't know if everyone else has this issue. We are residents of that community. We can't find parking. We're traveling around for an hour just to find something, and you're bringing more people in our community. It's not livable. And if we were in the suburbs or we were in a more affluent neighborhood, these concerns wouldn't come up because we would have a place where we can call home. Now you're making our home more like a business, more like a club, and I thought we were moving away from that.
One quick thing, just a note.
Well, just wait. I want to hear from everyone. I set an expectation. We're going to do it that way. We're going to get every question asked and every question answered before this night is out. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Kristen Vermeyer, and I'm the president of the condo board at 701 Lamont, and we have about 20 units that face north that would be severely affected by the application by Kraken Access with both noise and traffic on the street, including if anybody has any reference to what's been going on with DACA, the beer garden. It's not only noise, it's 1,000 people leaving a beer garden every night and urinating on Morton Street and urinating on the alley and urinating on Georgia Avenue, which is already a problem. And I just want to address here, we heard a lot of talk about chicken nuggets and community, and not once did the representative mention that their application is for 1,000-person drinking establishment. I know, but I just want it, for my record, 1,000-person drinking establishment with live entertainment until 2 a.m. outside on a residential street, Sunday through Thursday, and then until 2 a.m. outside, live entertainment until 3 a.m. over the weekend. And, don't be fooled by chicken nuggets and soft pretzels and community coffee.
Brenda Falk, and I also live on Morton Street, 755. And I won't repeat everything she just said, ditto, 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 ditto. My daughter lives across the street from a place that has a very similar, it's not here in DC, it has a very similar license. They start blasting their music at 9 p.m. at night, and that music stays on full bore. If there's anybody out in the out and about place or not, that music is blasting until their regulated license says they have to stop it. So I'm a little concerned about that. The 500 people, I want to add something to the urinating. I've lived in this neighborhood off and on since 1992. I want to ditto what the gentleman earlier said. We're trying, and what you said, we're trying to de-alcoholize this area. We're not trying to add more alcohol to it. 500 people outside, I can't even begin to imagine how that's safe. We have 37 parking spots on the south side of Morton Street. We have 29 parking spots on the north side of Morton Street. And those are full. Those are full every night, every night. So I don't know where in the world people are gonna park. There are 7 parking spots on Georgia Avenue outside of Kraken Access. There are 4 on the opposite side of the street. And go back to what Mr. Williamson said about the safety crossing back and forth. Okay, fine. So how are 1,000 people going to get there? Okay, well, they're going to Uber, right? Well, no, they're not. They're going to take the Metro. They're going to be walking at 2 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the morning back to the Metro after they've had their excellent experience. I have a complaint that I would like to put forth. This is an exterior shot of Kraken Access. You can see that there's absolutely no visible alcohol permit sign here. If you go right up to the teeny weeny little space that's available here, you can kind of see that there's an application with the hearing date. I was not able to see that hearing date, so I have no idea where I'm supposed to go and when I'm supposed to exercise my rights as a citizen. Also, the other thing that you can see as you look through the teeny weeny little space that's there is partially opened or partially consumed wine bottles. So my question is, if this is an alcohol application that's licensed, that's in progress, why are there open bottles of alcohol in the establishment at this point in time? The other thing is the information that you guys put out yourself is it's not just a beer and wine garden, it's also including a large Scotch library. So is that something that's coming later, the application for hard liquor? I would like clarity and I would like honesty and integrity from the get-go. 500 people outside and 500 people inside, we don't need that in our community. I'm really sorry, we just don't.
Hi, I'm Liz Concolato. I'm at 718 Morton Street. I have the same concerns expressed by my neighbors, especially just the outside, 500 people in that space. That's a mosh pit. That is not feasible. And also, I love the idea of having a family center, like a place where people can gather, but families aren't going to be the ones gathering at 1 and 2 a.m. And I have a 6-month-old baby. If he is awake at 2 a.m., I will bring him to your establishment so you can see how upset he gets from if there are loud noises keeping him awake. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Meisner, a resident at 729 Morton. I echo many of the same concerns my neighbors have. I'd also like to add I've worked in nightlife for about 15 years in DC, and I cannot think of a single venue with a 500-person outdoor space till 3 a.m. with live entertainment. So to put that in a residential area, I think is truly unprecedented. And like many of my neighbors, I'm wholly opposed to this.
Hi, I'm Keith Haig. I live at 762 Morton Street. And literally just that last night, I had to call MPD 2 times, not about your establishment, but because of noise. The noise echoes in that corridor here. So your proposal is frankly insulting. I have no problem with a unique business that you guys have said. That's great. But to think that you could have that amount of people outside at those hours drinking and partying is absurd. It's absurd. I mean, I can hear the noises just down the street, 100 yards, 400 yards away. The noise echoes. And I want to just reiterate what has already been said because it's important. The garbage, the wine bottles, the beer and the urination, it's disgusting. So I really find it a little bit offensive, this proposal in a residential community. You know, I frankly would just ask you to withdraw, keep your business inside.
I appreciate you coming to my porch and talking to me the other day. I do want to give you. My name is Selma Sims. I live at 712 Morton Street. I do want to give the kudos for what I see because I live directly across from you. And I have seen the corner clear up because your business has moved in. Your parking lot used to be a bathroom when the Murrays was there and an opportunity for drug activity. From my living room, I could see it. And since you've moved there, it has been gone. The trouble that would exist on the corner is no longer there. And I appreciate that. I've also heard people have a really good time in your establishment. So I know that your target is for people to have a good time and to have fun. And that's refreshing to see in the neighborhood. My concern is you do have that big parking lot. Use it for parking and keep your business on the inside. I realize that you want to maximize your dollar and you want to utilize as much space as possible, but you're not in a zone where you could do that. There are houses, families, babies, kids with asthma, the elderly. And I'm one of those elderly. I'm an AARP member. So, I'm just saying that there's balance and practicality in everything. And I think that your business would thrive even more if you consider that. if you just make it about maximizing your dollar, will you really get a good experience from the community? Because I do believe that you want to involve the community, but till 3 o'clock in the morning on a street where there are houses, people work hard, we pay taxes, we have to get up and go to work the next day, our kids have to go to school the next day. We want an establishment to thrive for you, but we also want a good quality of life. And I don't see that with 500 inside, 500 outside, and just partying all night long with a live band on the outside as well as the inside. It's just not a good quality of life for us.
Hi, I'm Gabe Oliver. I live at 734 with my wife, Wilkerstown, from Ms. Barnes' family. We're trying to keep an open mind about it. I don't think an empty parking lot with a chain link fence is benefiting the neighborhood, but it is a quiet street, despite what you might have read or think, being just off Georgia Avenue. At night, when you're on our street, it's a quiet street. And I'm disappointed in, frankly, the disingenuous nature of your presentation. The chicken nuggets and all that. It's about a party establishment. It's about an outdoor beer garden. That's what it's about. And if you talked about why you're going to do that, and why you want to do it, why you think you can coexist with us in the neighborhood, I think some of us that are trying to be open-minded about the application would have been a little more open-minded to that. But that's not what we got.
My name is Seth Long, and I'm on 714 Market Street, so I'm right across the street from you guys. So again, I have the same concerns. The parking, it has been, I have a kid who has disability. So parking 3 blocks away from my home is extremely difficult with kids having meltdown. Also, my child is hypersensitive to noise, and I literally have to like tiptoe to go to the bathroom every night. So I can only imagine how many meltdowns a night I would have if there was 100 people right across from my home.
Hi, Aaron Corbett, 753 Morton Street. So I just want to highlight a couple of these things. So 1,000 people, if just 10% come by car, there's just no more parking anywhere. When my girlfriend visits me on a Friday or Saturday, she parks usually 2-3 blocks away already. With the police gentleman here already talking about the increase of crime, I don't want her to walk in the middle of the night. So that just doesn't make any sense. Then I want to highlight the experience of the Wonderland people and the people of that 9th Street beer garden, Darker. Both of those neighbors are now very regretful that they let this ever happen because they're not sleeping, and they still got to go to work, and it's not a nice experience to work when you're really, really tired because the night before you couldn't sleep. The next thing is, I forgot who brought up the disingenuous approach. So you talk about the wonderful chicken McNuggets. I'm vegetarian, but I love chicken McNuggets if I were to eat them. Wonderful. The thing that I find consistent in your presentation is, so we've got this innocuous invitation to a conversation for coffee the next morning at 8:30. So I get it in the evening, I kind of see it in the small print something. The next morning on a Sunday I'm supposed to be somewhere. That was not really an open invitation. The second thing on Morton Street, we have a number of Spanish speakers. Now luckily they speak some English, but some prefer to speak Spanish. Again, it would have been nice to have this a little bit broader. Then, the way the application, you say is an asking status, that can be, that's wonderful. I know, I change my mind all the time. But it can also be interpreted that you open it up to 3 o'clock in the morning, and I graciously now allow you that you only open until 12. And then we have a bargaining chip. Oh, and we also don't open at 8 in the morning. So I think at every turn, you were not entirely forthcoming, not entirely trustworthy. And so at this point, at least, I definitely don't want a decision from you guys tonight, because we need to have a much better understanding of what's going on, what they're asking, and I haven't even gotten to the fact, axe throwing and alcohol, any kind of way, I know you're very safe, and hopefully there won't be any accident. That also just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, so all these things together don't sound very encouraging to me. I'm looking forward to hearing from you how you can fix this all together, but thank you very much.
I'm Fritz Heyer. I live at 701 Lot. Going last is nice because everybody pretty much said everything I was thinking, but I would like to add a couple things. One, do you live in the neighborhood? Two, what is your experience running bars, clubs, beer gardens? And three, what is, if you were to live across the street, a block away, 2 blocks away, what do you consider reasonable hours? Because what you put in the proposal is not reasonable, and you know that it's not reasonable. So, if you're going to operate a reasonable business, what do you consider reasonable hours?
Dan Anthony from 720 Morton Street. So we are also just directly across. I just want to say I've gone. It was a very good time. We went to the coffee. We spoke. We're very concerned, and I've made this very clear. We're very concerned about the hours. We have a 3-year-old, but at the same time, I feel like there's a path forward here. Sometimes negotiated settlement that says reduced hours in the week, particularly for the live entertainment outside. Something if it's reduced capacity after designs. I would be very upset with a 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. during the week with outdoor entertainment. Something short of that, something that's more like what Midlands has, where I think it's 9 o'clock during the week. Those are the type of things that I think are useful conversations to have. And to that last point as to what you would like to do, as opposed to what's the default.
Yes.
For the community, I'm pretty sure that for outdoor gardens, during the week, Sunday through Thursday, it's 11 p.m. and on weekends it's midnight. The city does not allow 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning in the first place. So rest assured that would not happen. Also, the fact that they open early, you don't have to do a boilerplate application. We've dealt with hundreds of these applications. And people put realistic hours. And you know you're not going to open at 8 a.m., so don't ask for an 8 a.m. license. And if you know you're not going to serve your outdoor garden until 3, don't put that stuff in there. You get people all upset needlessly. You create a problem for yourself that may not have necessarily needed to exist. A more reasonable approach. And look at your neighborhood. 500 people outside. 500 people inside, I'm still trying to wrap my head around. And I'm very serious. Trying to wrap my head around. But 1,000 people in a residential neighborhood, even though Georgia Avenue is a commercial strip, it's a strip. It's not a neighborhood. And so, a little consideration of where you're going. Don't just look at the dollar. Don't look at what you think you can give to the community, because actually the community is not asking for anything at all. Seriously. They've not asked for whatever you're offering. There are nice places you can plug in that don't require 500 cars or 500 people. So that's just my issue.
Thank you, Commissioner Wade. I have a question about the outdoor space. I don't think it's entirely clear to me, or at least it's gotten confused to me since the first time we discussed what would be on the outside. Is it simply a beer garden similar to Midlands, or would there be axe tossing outside as well as inside? And the reason I'm asking that is I'm trying to understand the use of the space, because the one, and I will be clear in some ways, I'm don't necessarily have a strong opinion one way or the other on how the space itself is used, but I do have a concern about noise. I do have a concern about impact on the neighbors. And so I'm trying to understand how the space is being used so I understand the nature of what would need to be, what's being asked and what would be a reasonable accommodation. That's where I'm trying to get to is, you know, I know the application says 500 people. We can disagree without being disagreeable about if that's the right number, but the number aside, how's the space being used? And then feel free to answer any comments and questions that came up.
Hi guys, I'm Stuart. I work alongside.
Oh, wait. You all want? Okay, we'll do it that way. Before you answer, let's hear from all the commissioners first. We'll start with Commissioner Holmes and we'll go right down.
I'm Commissioner Holmes, I'm your ANC commissioner. I live right down the street from half of y'all. I see half of y'all in the morning walking the dog. And we have to come a long way from that point. I don't want to reverse it. And personally, I ain't had no good contact with y'all people since I've been there. I've seen y'all open, y'all had your beer and wine tasting. People came in and tasted beer and wine. There will be no invitation out to the neighborhood saying that, yo, y'all welcome to come here to taste the wine. Then I got a rude awakening when I walked past your place. One of your gentlemen came outside with a teacup in hand talking about, well, you don't, what you doing up here? This is private property, you cannot stand here. I looked down, he didn't know me, I looked down and walked on. My mind not that way no more. It used to be. Well, I'm just there with my neighbors. If y'all want this license, I'm gonna be truthful with y'all, and we'll have to work for it. Number one, I'm requesting 4 people out the neighborhood that are working there, 2 males, 2 females. I ain't going to involve my volunteers right there. I don't care what kind of race it is, but 4 people out the neighborhood got to work there. If you have an issue with it, I'm going to ask for a neighborhood committee to step up, and we can just monitor the situation. We have bad vibes with it. We all need to get them honest. We all talk about it. That's the reason I got it.
Only thing I wanted to say, and I think the neighbors, and I was so glad that you let them speak first because they really hit on all the issues that needed to be addressed. And one said something that really stuck with me. He said that there were a lot of people in the neighborhoods like the Wonderland and the DACA that have regrets. And I remember they came in and said it was going to be this certain thing that it was just going to have special parties and all that stuff. And it ended up being a whole lot more. And all I got was a lot of complaints from my neighbors about the noise. I live 4 doors down, and you could hear the noise all night long. And so we do have to be mindful of those things when we're talking about giving out these licenses now, because you're really affecting people that live in the neighborhood and they don't really have a lot of recourse after this ship is sailed. So you do need to think about changing your hours. I thought her idea was great to use it for parking as opposed to, I can't even imagine live music outside with houses there. That's just kind of ridiculous. So you need to go back to the drawing board on this.
Thank you for coming here tonight, and thank you everyone from the neighborhood that came and spoke. I'm really looking forward to a community solution that is presented to us in May, and I hope that you keep us informed the entire time. And from the community, you know, if you're not getting the feedback that you deserve, then make sure you let us know.
I think everything's been pretty well said. Again, I would just say, you know, thank you for making the presentation, and especially thank you to all the neighbors who came out to speak, because that's how we are able to make the best decision that reflects what the community actually wants. I think a lot of time restaurants have to recognize that we live in a very dense urban area that's, you know, and we all have to figure out how to coexist together. So I hope in May, when you come with a revised or with a settlement agreement, that it will really involve a very thoughtful and it sounds like many concerns that need to be addressed, and that those will be addressed by May. Thank you.
you guys for taking the time to explain what you're trying to do. But once again, this is DC, this is not New York. And we're a community, we're not a commodity. And every time somebody's trying to put more density into what we're already dealing with, the parking situation is atrocious, pretty much from section to section in Ward 1. And I can see whatever you want to do on Georgia Avenue. When you start talking about creeping down Morton Street, you're disavowing the community that you live in. So I ask you to go back and look at what you're doing. Because if the community's not coming first, I ain't for this at all. This is just nuts. How much money does everybody need? Not saying you don't have a right to have a business, but I'm telling you, when you're talking about cracking axes, this doesn't go with community. This is not H Street. This is not Southeast. But you're gonna put this on Morton Street, close by, in a community that's been there forever. That's a really bad putting a square into a round hole. It's not gonna fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you go, there's also two other things that have come to mind as I've been listening to everybody. I've heard comments a couple of times about beer and wine. Do you currently serve beer and wine in your space? And if so, how does that relate to this license? Is it a different type of license? Is it an events license, just for clarity? And then I believe the license before us is a tavern license. And is there any long-term plans for a different kind of license, or is it a tavern license all you want? Is this like the current thing, or is this like a stepping stone to something different? So I'll let you talk. You've heard us quite a bit.
Hi everyone, I'm Stuart. I work with Anna at Kraken. I guess I want to address one thing. It feels a lot like us versus them, and I want to make sure you guys know I'm a fifth generation Washingtonian, born in DC. I live down the street. Anna lives down the street. So I just have to say to you all that this is also our community, and we do care. One of the reasons we chose to open Kraken in our community, is because we wanted to entrench what we felt was a really cool concept that we brought to life here in the district to the place we live and play. And for us, that was really, really important because there were a lot of options for us to go into a commercial area or somewhere else. But we found for us, when we first did this, this felt like bowling. This felt like something we could go do on a Friday night with our friends, with our family. And it was. My mom's 67. She comes and does it all the time. And so, for us, I just want to make sure you guys know who we are and that, we're not New Yorkers from Brooklyn or New York who just came down to DC and we don't know what we're talking about. We also walk 2 blocks when we park our cars and walk to our houses. So we're aware, freshly aware, of the issues you guys face. And I want you to know that we're standing here before you guys today, not just sending our ABRA attorney here to talk to you, to make sure you guys know a little bit about who we are, know that we're not disingenuous in any capacity, and explain where maybe some of the misinterpretations might be coming from, or where some of the, if some of you are upset or feel like we have been disingenuous, we obviously want to make sure we take the time to personally address that with you guys, answer your question, because at the end of the day, we live here, we want to build something that's great for our community, for us, and for the city. So I guess we can start going down the questions kind of one by one. And if you guys want to let people kind of chime in or create a dialogue, you just let us know. But I kind of wrote everything down, and Anna and I can address one by one. So I know a lot of it is this 500 number inside and outside. So I want you guys to know that number was not, we didn't just pull that number up and go, oh, we want to put 500 people here. We got a number from the city that was the occupancy, and we were told that we had to put what was slated as the occupancy on there. Not slated that we want to have 500 people inside or outside. We just had to put the legal occupancy number on the form.
And that's based off of raw square footage. That's, as you can imagine, those numbers drastically change once you talk about putting any type of infrastructure in the space. And so
about how many people do you have in there now?
So when we open Thursday through Sunday, and we open from 2 until 10, so we don't operate until 3 in the morning, we can probably accommodate 40 or 50 in the sense of what we allow in, right? In terms of the space that safely we can accommodate people and engaging in the activity. Again, this number was created by the city based on the total square footage.
No. The city did not create that. The city has parameters, reasonable expectations from reasonable businesses and developers. Know that you don't go into a department store and ask for the top of the line, the max of your credit card, the most you can get for as long as you can get it, and expect everybody to say, oh, good. You know you're entitled to it. What I would like to see.
That's not what we're asking.
What I would like to see is a realistic application. What you really expect from what you really want to expect and what you really want to expect the community to accept. They're not going to accept what you put down there.
Well,
We have to put down what the
Commissioner
fire
Wade-
marshal tells us to put down.
Well, I'll say yes and no. I mean, if you went in with plans that showed future changes to the space which impacted the square footage, that would change what the fire marshal would say is the maximum. And you've indicated that over time you do intend to do some changes inside, but right now it's just an empty shell, which is why you're getting the 500. What I would say is, regardless of what the square footage allows, based on the concerns we have heard, the community that has taken the time to come here tonight, because I can assure you, while I'm a little crazy because I keep coming back to this meeting month after month, and I've done it for 8 years, I know that's a commitment for many people. It's hot in here. They've had to wait quite a while to say their piece. And so I give them kudos for sticking it out. What I would like to offer is, clearly you're saying that 500 is not what you want. The community is saying 500 is not what you want. Regardless of what's on the application, we both know that a way to get to an agreeable number is to sit down and talk about the number. And so I'm asking the question, are you open to perhaps a settlement agreement to address simple things like hours of operation, noise abatement, and addressing many of the concerns that have come up? Because that's where we're going to get to the balance. I believe you want something that's balanced. I know the community definitely wants something that's balanced, but we're not going to get there without all sitting down around a table and just having this conversation with real expectations. So I hear what Commissioner Wade is saying, but I think it's almost immaterial about the number that got on the application.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the community understands how the number came about. Came from the fire marshal. We were filling out the application as instructed and went with the numbers that the fire marshal created. So I don't want anyone to think that I heard some comments today that it was obnoxious of us to do that, or I can't remember the exact adjective used, but again, these are not two people here who are trying to harm the community and come up with a number that's going to egregiously offend anybody in this room. Again, we're trying to follow, as you guys can all imagine, following the rules in DC and filling out forms. It's complicated. It's a lot of work to open up we're small business owners, all right? We're working hard in our community. We're working hard throughout the city. It's not the only business we own. So I want you guys to know that we're following DC red tape as we're filling out these forms. And I don't want that to be misconceived as something as us trying to be disingenuous with the community that we're working in to try to create a number that's not realistic or, so I just want to make sure that's clear for everybody that it's not to offend. We're trying to follow the rules that DC has provided that we follow. The exact date, I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure it's the 24th. Well, no. The hearing's not the 24th, but I believe the deadline for submitting a protest would be the 24th. 21st, thanks.
Roll call hearing is June 4th.
Right.
And protest, what?
But so, may I borrow that? Thank you, because I'd asked for this to be included in our binders and it wasn't. So, the placard posting was April 6th. Protest petition deadline is May 21st. So we have an opportunity to take this up in the May meeting without missing that deadline. But what May 21st is that's the deadline when someone, whether it's the ANC or a group of 5, must file with ABRA. When that filing occurs, should it occur, then the roll call hearing is June 4th. And that's when people, for instance, if the ANC filed a protest, then a representative from the ANC must be at ABRA on June 4th so that they know it's not just sending in a letter, you have to physically show up. And then all that's doing is saying, yep, you're real, you've protested. And then the actual hearing would be August 1st. Now, there's a lot that can happen between now and August, and frequently when there's a settlement agreement or some kind of negotiated path forward, you never get to August 1st. That's the idea. But hopefully that explained what some of those dates were.
So if the placard posting is not visible, do they have to re-placard?
They did. I seen it today before I came in. I purposely went up there to look to see, to see that they hadn't put their little yellow orange paper. It's in the front door on the left side.
Yeah. That we know. The question is when the security gate is down, it's completely hidden.
And just so you all know, we addressed this exact point with ABRA, so not to give away our secret, but that door doesn't lock, so don't tell anybody. So one of the problems we have is, I think you were addressing some of the neighbors that have been using that parking lot as a toilet. What they were regularly doing when we first took over the space was they were lifting that door and urinating in there, and there were actually some people sleeping in there and some other things. We tried to work with the company to put some locks on there, and we had talked to 2 ABRA investigators explaining that we have it's an old warehouse and there's no open facing windows. And so we had shown them pictures and described what we should do. We also described that during our business hours, that is open. And they recommended we tape it up as we taped it up next to all our other building permits, which are all visible and accessible. We don't have another window to place it in where somebody just literally couldn't come rip it down. And so what we had asked them to do and what we could do was that we could post it on the side of the building. They advised against this and that it wouldn't be there for more than 24 hours. So, again, for us, I think, as anybody who has known Anna and dealt with her, we've been openly dealing with, obviously, the ANC to reach out and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We're not trying to hide anything from anybody or hide the fact that we're applying for an application. We are both there right now, at least probably 7 to 7. So if you guys want to come in and look at the applications and look at everything, we're obviously
Or
not.
just talk to us.
Yeah,
Is it possible to get a second copy for outside the building? Because I think it's a fair point.
This is what we asked them to do. So we were talking to the investigator. What they are giving us is a secondary copy that is actually laminated, that can go up on the outside of the building, that will be weather resistant and so forth. They did not give us that, but since we made the request, they're going to do that for us so we can actually post one up on the other side of the building in a place where hopefully no one's going to tear it down. But obviously, we are going to make that posting in accordance and per the request of the ABRA investigator, in addition to the one that is currently in the front window of the building now that you can, again, I know it's hard to see all the details, but again, still public record available. We're also available to talk through anything as it relates to that and or anything else if you guys want to come talk to us about.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair because I understand that if ABRA's advising that's where they want it to be, I understand that would be considered legal notification, but we're also interested in effective communication.
And we've been told by ABRA that we should have that laminated copy by the end of the week that we're going to go pick up and then post. And you can also, I'm sure you all will walk by, but we'll send you all a photo that we've posted it as soon as we receive that from DCF.
Okay.
Commissioner, can you address how a settlement agreement happens and how members get involved in that?
Sure. So essentially what a settlement agreement is it outlines the parties. ANCs are typically a party. should we choose to be involved, and I think it's in our best interest to do so. I have a copy of the one for Midlands with me, and it talks about the nature of the business, the hours of operation, and the hours can be very granular, as in it will state not only hours that the business can be open, but also the hours that they can serve alcohol. The closing time can change depending upon if it's a weekday or a weekend. The hours can change versus interior space versus summer garden. And then if there's live entertainment, there can be additional different hours for live entertainment. If there is live entertainment or no, depending upon the building, I don't think this building has this nuance, but you can also address which floors of a building are used for which purposes. You can make comments about noise. Well, you can make statements about noise and privacy. For instance, with Midlands, we requested architectural improvements to keep the sound inside the building rather than bleeding out into the community. I know with DC Reynolds and Looking Glass Lounge, both of them, when their music is playing, we've asked that they keep the front door closed so that it's not bleeding out into the community. There are, for instance, in Midlands, the amplified entertainment in the summer garden can be no later than 9 p.m. That's just what was written into their copy. So it also addresses things like public space and trash, rats and vermin. Parking is always difficult, but there's usually a statement about parking within what we can control. And then there's notice and opportunity to cure. So there are various sections. What we can do is we could start with essentially a pretty close to blank template, and clearly community members would be allowed to be part of that conversation. This is not something we have to do in the back room somewhere on the trunk of a Chevy at midnight with one light broken in the alley. But I would prefer to have community input. I mean, that's why we're doing it to begin with, right? And how can we know what's agreeable without the community being part of that process?
We're happy to host that as well.
Yeah.
So I think just for everybody's record, I mean, we're here to work with you guys.
We know you all live close to us, so we're happy
It's,
to.
I think, to one thing that I mentioned earlier, we had a lot of opportunities to take this business, especially we're born and bred in DC, we're corporately headquartered in DC, and we could have easily taken this to a commercial area or a commercial district. And again, we want it to be in our neighborhood, so it's in our best interest to make sure that the neighbors enjoy our business and actually will use it. If not, we're not going to be here very long. So from our perspective, we want you guys to be involved in the settlement agreement that we work on with you all. Contrary to what you might read on Popville or a lot of media stuff, a lot of things get misconstrued on the internet. So that's obviously one of the reasons we're here to talk directly to each of you today. And also our door is open. If you guys want to come in and ask us questions, we're happy to provide you guys all our information. If you want to email us, call us, talk through anything. And again, we can keep this an open dialogue between all of us. Because again, at the end of the day, this is an urban area, right? So businesses are here, residences are here. We all have to work together. We have to provide a great space, and we all have to be great neighbors together. And that's our commitment to you guys, is to do that, to be a great neighbor.
Commissioner Wade, you had a question?
So I'm still struggling with the number of patrons you're expecting. So realistically, we're saying 500 was mandatory some kind of way?
We're not saying that.
Or 1,000, or however your application reads. Can you give the community that's left here a sense of how many? I know you said 40 for the Axe room.
So I think let's take a step back. There's not a number, okay? We are so early in the infancy stages of even building this facility out. We don't even have final architectural drawings that we could even submit to garner a new occupancy permit or an occupancy number. The occupancy number is created based on usable square footage at the time of application. So right now, at the time of application, we don't have any infrastructure as the city views it inside the establishment to change that occupancy number. I can't go to the fire marshal and say, can you make it 200 so that I can appease the community for this alcohol application? I can't do that. So once they finish our final architectural drawings, and obviously those then all need to go get permitted through the city, they'll give us a new number when that occurs.
Yeah.
And I can tell you guys, that's not for months down the line probably, or even, I mean, right now with our architect, they're still figuring out what we legally can do in the space, given what it formerly was. I mean, it was, as you all know, it was a People's, then it was a Murray Steak. We're obviously coming in saying we want to do
It was built as an A&P.
So, Chairman Bates asked a question, and I'm wondering if I missed it.
Sure.
What do you serve right now?
So right now, the establishment is open for axe throwing, right? Competitive axe throwing. We have a couple key products in there. We have garnered in the past several times catering licenses for private events, and we've also garnered temporary licenses for several key events. So the way we've been able to serve people in the past on specific nights or for specific corporate groups, we hire a caterer to come in who has a catering license. They can work directly with that. Well, no, the catering license is well, event and caterer's licenses, which are two very distinctly different things. But yes, that's how we've been doing it.
So I'm just, when you come to us in May, will you have a vision of what you imagine that occupancy to be? Presumably, as you're working with your architect, you have some concept of what you want that outdoor space to look like.
So let's address, let's address indoor and outdoor. Let's put those in two separate buckets. So let's talk about the indoor. As it relates to what we want, it's not about really what we want and what we're asking for per se. They're going to tell us what we know we can accommodate based on what we're putting in for arenas. So think about us, if you've never done this, think about bowling meets darts, right? So it's like a bowling lane.
And think about it in terms, if you're trying to get a visual in your head, you're looking at something that's about 12 feet wide by 20 feet long. So when you're thinking in terms, and that's one arena. And so when you're thinking in terms of, square footage and how space gets eaten up from an infrastructure standpoint and how that affects our C of O, how it affects our occupancy numbers, know that the base of our business, axe throwing, is contingent upon these arenas, of which hold 12 people to an arena, so of which the amount of space that those take up square footage wise, I'm doing a bad job of this, but is fairly significant.
Yeah, so we have a lot, if you look at our space, for those of you who've been in the establishment, it's like a bowling alley, right? I mean, people aren't down the lane standing there, but from an occupancy.
But our concern isn't so much the axe throwing business. My question still is trying to get back to what type of alcohol license are you?
Tavern.
License.
Yeah,
Tavern
CT license.
CT license. And I know the question was, do we have an intention of changing it to something else, and the answer is no.
Okay. In the interest of time, since we spent nearly an hour on this, I would make a motion that the stipulated request be tabled and that we take the next month to delve into a settlement agreement, hash out these nuances with the community. I love that you're offering to host, because I think there's a number of questions that can only be answered when you're seeing the space. I would ask if you could give us some dates, and then I know I have contact information for some of the neighbors. I don't have contact information for all of the neighbors, so if one of you actually has, do you have everyone's contact? Because what I really want is I don't want to leave anyone out of that conversation that wants to be a part of that conversation, and I'm sure there are people that want to be part of it that weren't here tonight. But that needs to happen. And then I don't know what people's schedules are. I would think that maybe late on a Saturday or perhaps on a Sunday, that would maybe accommodate most people, I don't know. I know weeknights get hard, a lot of people work downtown, and it's difficult to get back uptown before life gets in the way.
Well, and for anybody who's, I know there were a lot of questions asked, and we obviously are getting cut short on time, so for anybody tonight who asked a question, or Anna didn't answer it, again, we're here willing to answer that. If you guys want to meet with us afterwards, or you want our contact information to... Yeah, Sure, yeah, I wrote down every question everyone asked.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can...
So I know the original agenda item was the request for the letter funding of the ANC supporting this. Is there a way that there can be an additional request? Because I would like to request that in the absence of a stipulated agreement that the ANC protest the proposed.
That's what we, yeah, and
that's not on the, so I would get, I know I'm not part of the board.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion that if a stipulated agreement is not arrived at, that meets all the needs of all the parties, that you, this body, oppose their application for their license? Is that within the bounds of your rules of order?
no, well, no, Commissioner Wade. It's a valid question. What I'm doing by tabling it is we're not voting to support it, and we're not voting to oppose it tonight, but we could vote to oppose it in next month.
So can I raise that new business item for you guys?
Well,
in the
what you could,
absence of an agreement?
well, a community member is not allowed to make a motion here, but your commissioner could make that motion for you. Like if that's what the community wants, and Commissioner Holmes agrees with you, he can make that motion on your behalf. So there is a path.
And normally, if there is a protest group, our ANC normally supports the protest group by also protesting. That does not mean we're going to vote against it. It just shows that there's more work to be done on it. And I think we're against it or for it. We protest the non-finalization of the issue.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do that. We do that naturally as a body.
But the good news about this one is at this time, we don't have to vote to oppose because we have time to address this at another properly noticed ANC meeting. And that could be one thing we do. It could be a vote of support for a settlement agreement that the community feels strongly is a good accommodation. But that's what we need to suss out. Yes, Jennifer.
So I was wondering if it might be helpful to have our representative from Sarah come out and at a community meeting, maybe at Parking Access, to explain the process. Because it's not a complicated process, but there are some key steps, and if you don't do those steps, you do lose your ability to protest. Community members, alternative to the ANC, can negotiate settlement agreements, but in that case, if an ANC comes in with a competing settlement agreement, it trumps anything that the community does. So the best, as Commissioner Basis and other members have been talking about, it's really most effective for everyone to come together and determine a voluntary agreement. But as between maybe now and May, that's something that I could offer to facilitate this process one evening if people are interested, just to educate themselves, because it comes up all the time very naturally. It's not necessarily a contentious experience, and it's an opportunity to document agreements, and it's a really effective process. And that could be the first night with Sarah coming in, walking everyone through that.
Well, I would say that doesn't have to be the first meeting. It can be a meeting, and Sarah's definitely welcome to join any and all meetings we have on this. But I think the I'll say sticking points, but the hours, the noise. I mean, we clearly know what some of the significant issues are, and we should start working on that. soon rather than waiting.
I just wanted to say, and I know I raised my concerns to you, but I am a person that's about fairness too. And I'm looking at the settlement agreement from Midlands, and so and I know every business is different, but let's just be mindful of the fact that we do have settlement agreements out there where we're allowing other businesses to do certain things, and so I don't know if we want. Hold on. So I'm just throwing that out there. I think Chairman Bass is willing to share with you the settlement agreement that we have with Midlands. Perhaps that can be a starting point. And Wonderland too, all those, you can start with those. And I will say that I did take the time to check you out on the internet, and it does seem that people have a good time when you come there, but at the end of the day, you have to be mindful of your neighbors. And so we can't go back once you start this. So you all be mindful that there are other businesses out there that have certain hours and they're allowed to do it. So do we really want to come down this hard on that? And I'm going to leave it at that.
And I want you guys to know that's why we're here tonight.
Yep.
And the settlement agreement process can be a really, really great process, especially when you're working with two business owners who want to work with you, not against you. So otherwise, it could be a painful process for everybody, and that's not good for us, and it's not good for you. So that's why we're here.
Okay, I appreciate that. So then I'm moving to table this until next month to give us the opportunity to work with the community, work with you, come up with something that's reasonable, review other settlement agreements that may be similar along Georgia Avenue, and just have the conversation that needs to be had. Is there a second? Amen.
Thank you.
Before you leave, I know Commissioner Miller was interested in seeing your photographs. So it's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion has been tabled. Moving on to 1125 Spring Flats, or the old Heber home. Essentially, is this even in here? I circulated a draft community benefits agreement. No, we have people we need to hear from. Do you want to come up and talk a little bit about it, or do you just want to sit and watch? No, I just have one question. And I know that Derek and Mike are here as well, so I want to touch base a little bit on this. Yeah, you're not supposed to use the gavel except for opening and closing the meeting. I'm sorry, that's Robert's rules. Thank you. So I think the community benefits agreement is pretty accurate as to where we are. I believe, I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't see you. I think the only real thing we're talking about, or the most significant thing we're talking about, is still a little bit of a facade on Spring Road. I'm not sure entirely that would be reflected in the CBA any more so than the language that's already there, but I just want to see where we are with that, to see that regardless of where this is, that process is still going to move forward to some kind of completion. Why don't you all come up here so I can hear you? Yeah, how do you talk cracking access?
Scott is here from our architect's office from Woodstock, and he can speak to it a little bit. We have heard the feedback, and we're already reviewing some options, and some, especially on materials, for looking at that facade and keeping that town on the field.
Scott Manning from Woodstock. Yes, we had a very good call the other day with some of the immediate neighbors and participated. And we are pursuing the ideas that were raised, and we're studying all those options that were suggested. And at some point in the near future, I think we can make those more public. We're reviewing them internally as a team, and vetting them internally as a team. And
I guess my question to Derek and Chris, I guess we lost Mike. Sorry. I know I didn't get this posted, I don't think, until yesterday morning. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, although I suspect Chris read every word. Are you, no, that's a good thing, that's a compliment. That's a compliment, take the compliment. Would you be comfortable with us voting in support of this with the understanding that we still have to work on that facade issue, and that I would say that we would be supportive of this on the condition that we come to a reasonable accommodation on that, or come to agreement on that?
Okay, I think that sounds about right. I just want to point out that we already have in the CBA that we're going to come back with the design presentation, so as part of.
I'm just crossing my T's and dotting my I's, because I want to make sure that, you know, that we've had some neighbors that have gone to every meeting, and their feedback has it's been valuable, it's been on point. To the comments, I think you're constructing a really wonderful project, but the community surrounding it also has to look at it. So this is a new neighbor in the neighborhood, and so that's the balance I'm trying to make sure.
And so we can do that, and then just sort of figure out with you about what that means, and then what we're trying to balance is, of course, the townhome feel, but as well as the feedback that we got to really keep it in line and matching up with the Hebrew homes. So those two things, we think that we can get the right balance. We think we're almost there, but just to understand that those two things are a little bit, they're different.
Yeah, no, they're different. I just want to make sure that whenever I don't know how soon it's going to be till you can turn around at like version 2.0 that we can share out so that we can get the feedback we need. But do you have any?
Go to the mic up.
Yeah, you can.
You guys don't have all your questions this time?
Huh?
Don't the commissioners ask questions first? You keep going back.
I want to know where the parking is.
That's for everything, right?
Where's parking?
So, do you want me to answer?
Yes, please.
So we've increased the parking spaces that the project will have to 76, and that's it'll be mostly underground in the parking garage for the new construction, as well as the townhome units will each have their own parking spot. So that's this current parking plan, and then there are nine surface spaces outside of the garage.
So on the narrow question of the facade, I believe the agreement still says you're building 10 townhomes, and I know the latest thing we saw was not, it was like 10 condos and 5 townhomes. But if you have a big legal agreement, I think there's T's need to be crossed.
Yeah.
And then I guess as a broad concern, I know this commission has talked about concerns about who should the parties be, and was, I believe, disinclined to have the ANC itself be a party for long-term enforceability and institutional knowledge reasons. But I see that's the case here.
Yeah.
And then speaking very broadly of the language, it's very it doesn't read like a lawyer, not that a lawyer didn't write, but also didn't look at it. It doesn't talk about enforceability or severability or any other sort of contingencies. If something did wrong, it has lots of language, sort of like, if feasible, we will kind of try to do this.
Yeah.
And the statements that are strict are sort of things like we will follow Davis-Bacon and other laws. I think it's great that they tend to follow the laws, but I thought that was not something we had to negotiate.
That wouldn't be something we have to negotiate, but it is a benefit. You know, it's like when we were doing Park Morton, we're replacing 147 units of public housing and then another 155 of affordable housing, and that is the goal of the project. But that much affordability is actually considered a benefit because zoning only requires 10%. So sometimes we recognize things that are beneficial that the project is bringing simply because a by right project wouldn't create it.
Could you speak to the enforceability and the parties? Are you satisfied with having the ANC as the party will work out after all?
Well, I mean, you know, I honestly think that where I'm getting to on some of this is like the affordable housing mix as a benefit, that's not going to change. The 10th Street Northwest, that's not going to change. So actually,
But if they put a padlock on the community room, how do we break that?
That's a good question. I don't think you would do it, but
I just know, well, I would just say we wouldn't do that. We've worked in the district since 1979, and we have Big Tree Heights here, we have Park Fair. You know, we are already neighbors in this community, and the whole idea of the community room is to make it accessible to the community, and we're going to work through the scheduling process and things like that. And we've actually got properties already in operation that have that kind of relationship with the community.
No, I appreciate that. There's always one corporate takeover away or whatever from all of that changes.
But yeah, I mean, some of the things that are here, like the development of the historic park and the public art and sustainability, and then the other benefits that are listed. By the time that your C of O has to be issued, what I'm seeing is most of these things have to be already created before the certificate of occupancy is issued. And so that's where I think the enforceability comes in, is becoming a real pain in the tuchus, so that the C of O doesn't get issued if they're not complying with this, and this is in writing and signed by two ANCs. So DCRA would have to respect it.
Okay. One of the is this the final draft, or can we still like add more things, or where is it standing?
I think this would be considered the final draft, with the exception of perhaps if there's some vague language that needs to be tweaked for clarity. I would say that would be a minor change.
Okay. One of the things we talked about, I think it was actually the first example of a possible community benefit, was reserving space for a police cruiser, as is that parking lot is currently used. I did not see that reflected there. And I believe as part of our we're pretending to do a PUD process, some of the traffic study or some other part of the traffic or environmental studies that would not be part of normally be part of a map amendment were going to be done anyway. I don't see that reflected here. I'm not sure this is.
Perhaps you can talk about where the traffic study issue is or hasn't changed. I know we had a person from D.com a couple meetings ago and talk. So has there been any movement on that?
I'd have to go back and see exactly where we are. There has been movement, but we've also had our traffic consultant who came to the last community meeting we had, who showed the parking studies and the traffic analysis that had been done. So we can get back to you on an update. That's an ongoing process, and we'll continue with the street changes as we work to design and work with DDOT on all those issues. And I think we actually refer to it in the community benefits agreement around interaction with DDOT and on Spring Road, 10th Street. So there will be a lot of interaction there going forward, and we'll be subject to their rules.
Right, but I think the one question that came up at the meeting is what's required for the map amendment is much smaller than what's required for the PUD. And while the full extent of the traffic study for PUD might not be, I'll go out on limbs, it might not be necessary. I think a little bit more than what was originally proposed here would be beneficial.
The traffic study that was done was, as is normally the case, the scope of that was determined in conjunction with DDOT.
Right.
So DDOT really determined the scoping of that for this particular project, like they do on all projects.
But to the point, DDOT would have determined a different scope had it been a PUD. So I think that came up and we didn't really get a clear answer from DDOT.
I can't speak to the specifics of it because I think this goes into like the nuances of the DDOT rules, but it has something to do with the fact that the Hebrew home already existed, and so there's the new units that are coming. So the PUD process, what it related to was not the total density. So there wasn't quite clear that more would have been required. But what I can do is we can make available to you and just give you the scope where it is so far, what we've done, and get you the next steps on that. And that's just going to be a continuing process as we work through the streets issues and the design.
Okay.
The spot, not a success.
Pardon?
The spot for the.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get a strong sense that that was going to be able to be accommodated, frankly. I know some neighbors really wanted it. I know some people mentioned that they didn't like it, but it's not something that, in working with Commissioner Hilly, that was on the final cut.
Okay. And then, I know it may feel like to add things, but if you could go through the details about the tree program for all the trees from 10th and spring, or the new ones that we have planted so they get like water properly for the first 3 years. That would be great.
We'll look into it. We have a lot of work on the trees, so we definitely want to make sure they survive.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add a whole lot. My name's Derek Dufran. I'm at 3627 10th Street. I'm a little concerned at just a couple of the more vague language, like best efforts to. It seems like there's a lot of opportunity. We know this is going to take a while for the project to come to fruition, and I'm sure at the point when we're talking about streetscapes on Spring Road and 10th Street that this is going to be very far down the process, and that we're going to be looking at budgets, or that the developers will be looking at budgets, and the concern that I have is that that's the kind of stuff that gets cut at the end, and I think languages like that should be tightened up a little bit. I'm definitely disappointed that the police, that the spot left out for some sort of a police officer to be able to be at that intersection, or for there to be a spot that's designated for a cruiser at that area to be taken out. It's already in the neighborhood now. Police officers in the neighborhood use it, at 2 to 3 cars, typically patrolling that corner. We've had somebody die on that corner within the last year. Shots were heard on our Ring doorbell. So the fact that the other commissioner who doesn't live nearby that corner is not in support of adding something that was very vocally supported through almost every community meeting that we've had is extremely disappointing. And I would encourage this board to take a different perspective, because that corner is very much affected of Ward 1 on that side, and having it removed without having much more consideration on it after being one of the main topics is very, very disappointing as a neighbor.
Question, if I may.
Yeah.
So, space for the police, would it be for the car itself so that there's still a patrol like there is now?
Yeah, I just think, we've all said that the visible presence of an officer there is helpful. And yes, something that would just be a police officer could use it as a spot to park in when they want to be able to have an area to patrol. Parking's going to get way more difficult in our area, and it's going to be much more difficult for a police officer to patrol that area as they have in the past. The one other thing I'll add is for the historic signage, I know it's something we've talked about. There's not much language in there about who's going to be being consulted of putting together the information for the history of the Hebrew home and the neighborhood, and just curious for what the thoughts are of who's going to be working to within the neighborhoods to come up with the dialogue of both the Hebrew home and the neighborhood at large. And then I just have one other point, was that I know we've done a lot of talk about the design work, and like we've said on calls that we've had with developers, we appreciate that they've kind of moved in different directions with us. I am concerned again that something like the facade on 10th Street being brick versus being what was originally thought of being siding in some other areas of the facade that we've talked about, that again, that's going to be further down the process, and the concern that I would have is that that's kind of a part of the streetscape and everything that we're talking about, that it could be nixed if the budget ends up not working with it at that point in time. So
Okay.
that's one other point I like.
So, you have some concern that brick may be substituted for siding moving forward on 10th Street?
Just because that was the original design.
Yeah. Just straight out, do you have any intent of doing that?
No.
If you don't have any intent of doing that, would it be okay to include that language in that the material, the facing on 10th Street will be brick as per the designs submitted.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I guess I would just point again to the part that we've already agreed to come back with the design thing. So to the extent that part of this, that aspect, you know, we could lay out the entire plan as it starts now, and that's where we can come back. But we will come back to see you, and so if you can put that in, that's fine. I just feel like the current language actually covers that.
No, I get it. And then, just because it's been brought up, what do you see as your process for the historic sign board, as far as who you'd be consulting?
The Historic Society, as well as you, and I think we've gotten a lot of great material and recommendations from you, Commissioner, about where to go for information, but also just some of the DC records we have. And we've actually already, because of the concept that we submitted, we already have a lot of that gathered. But I think we could also we've heard like there's anecdotes from the community and things like that, and that's something we can also look into doing, reaching out to sort of find stories from people who actually were here.
And when you say the Historic Society, which one are you thinking of?
I don't want to say the Jewish Historic Society.
There is a Jewish Historic Society.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I got that.
I think it's the Jewish Historic Society of Greater Washington or something like that. Okay, we'll move it along. All right, well then why don't I do this? Why don't I make a motion that we will support this in concept with the understanding that we have some tweaks we still need to make, just for clarification, and I'll consult with you all on that. But I won't be signing this until we figure out what those tweaks are. But I think we're really, really close. So let's work on those areas. And so my motion is to, well, let me put it this way. My motion is to support the community benefits agreement with the understanding that I will continue to work with the community and the development team on the areas that have been brought up as concern, and shall I say empower me to sign it once those areas have been addressed, so that we.
Because it doesn't say a number of parking anywhere in here except for the airspace.
It won't. Because it's not. That's not a benefit that's baked into the development.
Not to have it is not to have it. If it's not in writing, what does it mean? What does this statement mean if it's not going to be in writing?
This is about the benefits in addition to the plan that's been proposed.
Just a clarification though, under affordable housing, under where we lay out, we do have the number of the parking spaces.
I'm sorry, under what?
The parking spaces is on page 3.
This is 76 parking spaces, 5A. All right.
I'm for more. I don't think it's enough. I think it's going to be a horrible situation at 10th and Spring, 13th and 11th. I don't think enough is being considered as we rush through this because somebody says we got to rush through this.
I don't think we're rushing through this. No, 10 years isn't rushing.
Once this thing is done, it's locked in. It's locked in.
All right. Well, I've made a motion. Moved and seconded that in concept we agree with this. I will continue to work on those areas. Once we've tightened them down, that's when we'll sign it.
We'll see, you'll send us,
Yeah, I will send you a draft prior. That's fine, but we don't have to consider this in a future meeting. Okay.
Roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Farmer's made a motion for a roll call. Is there a second? So it's moved and seconded. All those in favor of the roll call say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Yeah, that's not how it works, Bobby. Commissioner Barczyk, can you take the roll?
Yeah. Commissioner Barron is
down to 1975, BZA case 19750. Thank you. Thank you for waiting to the almost very end. Well, and they're my neighbors, so I don't know if we're on speaking terms anymore. I'll introduce it a little. I know you'll do a much better job. This is a property at 3657 Warder, which is the southwest corner of Rock Creek Church Road and Warder Street. It is a block from my house. I pass it every day. In a nutshell, it's currently a 3-story house. There is not a proposal to add any height to the structure. Based on what I'm seeing, there's a proposal to bump the back of it out on the ground floor to the alley, which is not inconsistent with 4 other structures that historically have already done this, and then replacing the 2-story sleeping porches with actually, I'd say, year-round sleeping or year-round living space. So essentially, that's what I see when I look at this, and I think the rear is what's causing the BZA. Yeah, it's lot occupancy.
Actually, it's just the rear setback.
Just the rear setback.
Lot occupancy is okay.
It's got a side yard, it's a corner. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I guess, should we introduce ourselves? Or?
Sure. Like I said, we're neighbors. We should talk.
Commissioners and remaining members of the community, thanks for your time. I'm Brad Gallagher. This is Adam Chamey. I've lived in the neighborhood 8 years and Adam for 10. And we're really excited about this house that we, for some reason, decided to just buy and renovate. It's kind of a wreck, and we're looking forward to having hopefully a nice spot at the end of the project. What we're trying to do is build an art studio for Adam. By day, he's an architectural designer, has a hobby of painting. The art studio would be at the basement level of the house and would extend, the basement level on the alley side would extend 11 feet 4 inches back from where the house is right now and add 187 square feet. If there are any questions, we're happy to address those, but thank you for your time.
We just recently approved that expenditure design.
This is totally different. Oh, yeah, that was, I think you're thinking of the one at Warder in Quebec.
Yes.
Yeah, that one actually had a 3rd-story addition that you don't really see because of the mansard attic, which is turning out very nice, frankly.
So we think this will look something like, I know that lot, I've known that lot, I was born and raised, and
Wait, listen. Yeah, can we get your stories afterward?
Donnie's saying her younger days have been known in that city. Yeah, what I'll say is, like for me personally, the house appears to be rough on the outside. I can only imagine what it's like on the inside.
Much worse.
Bless you for taking care of this. One thing I love about these houses in particular is the Kennedy Brothers houses have the basement goes out under the porch, and this is a huge porch. Because of the precedent that's already been set by the other, like 4 of the other houses, the rear yard setback doesn't bother me in the least because, this just makes number 5. And I'm not troubled by anything. I will tell you the thing that was kind of funny to me is the first thing I had to get my mind around was the covering of the porch. And I realized that the house originally had a covered porch. And I don't know if it was as big as what you're proposing, but once I thought about it, I'm like, that's really nice.
is the brick wall going to be encompassed in certain?
The brick wall is there's an existing, it's just the retaining wall. Yeah.
Okay.
And it tapers out.
I was going to see that.
It's on the envelope.
Yeah, that's, the side yard's not changing.
The side yard is not changing.
Other than maybe in the future chopping down a tree that should have never grown there.
Yeah, maybe some leaves.
Yeah. Honestly, I think this is pretty straightforward for me. I heartily support it, so I'm going to move to approve this one. It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any objections? I apologize that the most painful part of your evening was just getting here.
I worked with Scott Matthews who came before, and I actually knew pretty much everyone who came on, so it's kind of
You
interesting.
learned a lot with
Yeah.
being last.
Yeah.
Good. And that's the age to teach.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Stay around.
I'll get this written up and submitted quickly. I don't know when you're. Yeah, I know we're really early in the process.
May 30th?
Yeah, that's easy. We'll get it in by then. Before the commissioners leave, there's that one final thing I have a question on. It's 1477 Girard Street. It's just a real quick question. Does the commission want to request that DCRA, do we want to go so far as to appeal their decision when there are two other houses on that block that are just like it and they don't have their C of O because they're over their FAR? I think what this gets down to is,
But when do we say we're gonna move it? Somebody else is gonna come and say, well, we have four.
Why do that?
I'm just
what the
asking.
owner, or the residents? The residents don't live in our ANC area. They've been examining things like this as they are watching like a hawk the decisions of the zoning administrator.
Yeah, so they're met, not able.
That's the question, is do we want to do anything about it or not?
Yes.
The neighbors aren't the ones.
No. It's a former commissioner from ANC 1C who lives just across 16th Street, so it's within walking distance to his street. That's probably why he's aware of it. It happens to be like one block in the wrong direction to be in
Yeah,
our
let Trump
ANC.
go over there, they got plenty of issues over there.
Well,
Yeah, it's
the
our area.
question is, it's in Margaret's single member district.
She didn't have any problem with them when they put that to us a while back to even do the ball.
Well, I don't think this is a BZA issue, this is being done as a matter of right.
So it's being done as a matter of record.
Well, it's being done as a matter of right, as two others have been, and those other two built saying, well, they didn't fail, they're just larger because they can't get a certificate of occupancy because they're larger than they were allowed. So it's one of those situations So is that a motion on your part?
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Wade moves and Commissioner Holmes seconds to appeal the building permit to get clarity on lot coverage and FAR.
Potentially result in tearing it down.
Yeah.
DCRA.
Right, but that
Well,
is,
I don't think
well,
we need to tear it down, but I
we'll
don't
tear
think
that
there
area
are
down.
that much.
I would like to see some sort of punitive measure as a result of this.
Well,
It's
then
not
we-
heavily fines, well, you know, to pay back what they've basically stolen from the community, which is the right to live.
Okay. No, it's okay. Yeah, I can tell. It's on record. So, okay. So Commissioner Wade has moved, Bobby has seconded to appeal that building permit so that we can get clarity on what is actually being built before it happens, so that we don't have a situation where we can't get the CFO. All right, so all in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, I'll take care of that. With that, we're at the end of our agenda, so at the late hour of 10:29, I am closing this meeting of ANC 1A.
Yay.